April 20th, 2026.
In the interest of everybody's time, let's get started. I will have 7 o'clock. We will call the regular Common Council meeting to order. Could I get a roll call, please?
Christensen?
Here.
Guthrie?
Present.
Keemer?
Here.
Broderick?
Here.
Burr?
Here.
Steinmetz?
Present.
Kneebone?
Here.
Shuda?
Here.
Lane?
Here.
Boozy?
Here.
And Morrow.
Here.
Great. And with everyone present, please join me in our salute to the flag. Like that one right there. That one. That's what it looks like. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We do have a very lengthy agenda with 3 presentations and a couple of other controversial things, so I will forego all but one. Kathy Dugan, former alderperson in the 8th District, passed away on April 12th. Services will be held on April 30th. We thank Kathy once again for her service to our community. Item number 3, persons who wish to address the mayor and council on a specific agenda item other than a public hearing must register their request at this time. Those who wish to address the common council during a public hearing are not required to identify themselves until the public hearing is declared open by me. We do have item 8 as a public hearing, and that is it. So if you wish to speak on an item, sign up on the table to my right. No, left, you're right. And we'll get rolling on that. Item number 4 is persons who wish to address the mayor and council for up to 3 minutes on a non-agenda item. How are we doing there, Bethany?
I think we have one more. On the hall.
Did you sort them for me already?
I did.
Sweet, thank you.
Don't count on it.
First up, Alderperson Jackie Guthrie.
Thank you, Mayor. Jackie Guthrie, Alder District 2. I speak today to surface a concern I have with the mayor's appointments to be considered a special meeting of City Council tomorrow here at 5 p.m. Denise Mrazek was the District 2 alderperson years ago and is just wrapping up her first term on the Police and Fire Commission, the body that oversees our police and fire departments in the city of Stevens Point. She would be delighted to serve for another 5-year term. The mayor's appointments list doesn't include her name. In July 2025, Commissioner Mrazek and other PFC members heard a presentation from the Comptroller Treasurer about the creation of a fire district with Park Ridge, a move that would allow the city to levy more taxes, but would dissolve the current board's oversight of the fire department. Commissioner Mrazek surfaced a thoughtful list of questions to the Comptroller Treasurer and expressed concern about the draft timeline of the proposed change. I would argue that this is exactly what we expect of our commissioners in service to this community. Questions, surfacing of concerns, asking for breaks to be applied when something big is moving quickly. In August, the mayor visited PFC to berate the commissioners, focusing his criticism on Commissioner Mrazek, who happens to be a woman and happens to have asked thoughtful questions about the proposal. He confirmed at her asking if the result of the interaction would be him not reappointing her to the commission, which he affirmed with a nod at the meeting. You can watch the meetings yourself. Perhaps you would describe her questions and his feedback to the commission, and her specifically, differently than I have this evening. I invite you to watch July and August 2025 Police and Fire Commission meetings yourself. Draw your own conclusions of her questions and his visit to that commission the following month. Her non-renewal, to me, lands as retaliatory for doing good work. At this month's Police and Fire Commission meeting, that body unanimously voted to support Commissioner Mrazek's reappointment. This is not standard practice for a commission to do. It begs for this body, City Council's, and the public's attention. Other commissioners went on record describing her as committed, competent, and someone they would like to continue to serve alongside in service to this community. I would like to request that the mayor reappoint Commissioner Mrazek to the Police and Fire Commission. I would humbly request that City Council colleagues, returning and brand spanking new tomorrow, come to tomorrow's special meeting on appointments prepared to discuss this matter. Our community would be well served by her reappointment. I yield.
Thank you. J.B. Moody. He's in the other room.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quickly to the alders that are going to stay seated and those new alders that are going to be in those places as of next month. What I'd like to do is offer out an invite. I currently have 2 seats available to what we call a Fire Ops 101 program. What that does is it explains and it shows what firefighters and EMS providers deal with on a day-to-day basis. This class will be a one-day class. It will be in Madison, May 27th. I have 1 seat for an alder, and I have 1 seat for a police and fire commissioner. And if anybody is interested in that, please get a hold of me. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea Olson.
Andrea Olson, 410 Franklin Street. This actually builds off of what Ms. Guthrie has just said. I didn't even realize that she was going to speak on that. But there's also been another person that did want to be on that fire commission that has also had a poor experience and was extremely qualified for the position too and wasn't even considered. Another female in the same situation. One thing that I've been concerned about is that I hope that the alders will consider some ordinance amendments because of cases like that. Our ordinances currently state that the mayor is on Public Works and the Planning Commission, but there is no reason other than that our ordinances state that. With him on those committees or commissions, he actually introduces a lot of bias during those situations. When we're supposed to have balance between the mayor and the alders, and on these commissions, when he is a part of them, he can push forward his own specific agenda, and also it makes it difficult for people to speak their own minds when he is there. When he doesn't need to be there, he can be in the audience like anybody else. And that would reduce bias, and also it would help make us more fiscally responsible. Corey decided to request to not be on Public Works because he felt there was some conflicts there because of his position. And then that ended up getting filled by somebody else that was appointed there from the community. I think that we should consider that for some other appointments also, to just have a separation there and some balance, checks and balances.
Thank you. And that exhausts our speakers list. We do have a couple of presentations tonight. The first one is going to be Dave Barbier and Michelle Gullikson from UWSP. And I am going to share that start. And go ahead.
All right, lovely. Thank you so much. My name is Michelle Gullikson, and I am visiting you from UW Stevens Point, Office of Sustainability. I had the privilege to talk with you all last year about kind of more the kickoff process of our climate action and resilience plan for UW Stevens Point. Since then, we've been doing a lot of work, many of that alongside you all who have served as working group members, and we have done a lot of work with the community city and all of our campuses and our students and staff and faculty, and we are moving right along, and we have some documents to share with you and encourage you to provide some feedback on. So if you go maybe to the second slide, I'll just kind of overview the documents that we have available that I'll be talking about. So we have a main document that's kind of public-facing, kind of an overview of our climate action and resilience plan, but we also have 5 additional supporting documents, and 4 of those are kind of like appendix documents on different like categories of the climate action resilience plan. We also have a more detailed updated carbon neutrality plan that was updated from the 2011 carbon neutrality plan, and all of the information in which I will kind of share a little bit what you'll find in these documents. What I do want to underscore is that all of the projects and all of the pathways to implementing the projects have been identified by our stakeholders and by our working group members, who have included folks at the university, folks in the community, some of our alder people as well. And then each of these documents will also, like I said, lay out a little bit more of the background information of the goal, but as well as some implementation strategies. So on the third slide, I just kind of want to overview that, again, these projects are representative of a large group of stakeholders' perspectives and goals for the university and for the community. They are written for a bit more of a specialized, interested audience, both for campus and community, people who really want to dig into the details of the implementation of this plan. So you will see some more detailed elements in these supplementary documents than you would in the sort of like main overview document that we've already provided some opportunity for feedback on. I guess on to the next slide, I will shortly be asking and encouraging all of you, either in attendance in person or watching via Zoom, to provide us with some input on projects. But there are about 50 projects, and because they are detailed, I suspect that not many people will have the opportunity to look through every single project and every single document. So I wanted to call attention to some projects that would be of particular interest to community members and our city partners, projects that are just going to tend to have a little bit more overlap between our goals on campus and our goals as a city and larger community. This presentation will be available to the alders, and I can always send out information to your constituents as you think that would be useful. If you go to the next slide, this is the first sort of like, I guess, theme in our climate action plan is communicating sustainability values, providing more funding, training, projects, initiatives, and awareness of sustainability in general. Going on to the next slide, one of our themes is climate action mitigation, so reducing our impact on climate, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. One of the major projects will be making sure that we continue to update and work with the carbon neutrality plan, which is also a featured document that you can review. On the next slide, we have some resilience type topics related to community resilience, both on and off campus. So thinking about emergency preparedness for climate events, hazard plans, as well as increased protection for like our ecosystems. And then thriving campus community would also have to do with ecosystem wellness. Yeah, sorry, you're good on that next slide that you're over. Okay. Perfect. Yep. And as well as human wellness, so thinking about mental health and wellness dimensions as well. And a lot of these, all of these topics and all of these appendices, yes, they are written primarily with that focus of University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, but you will be able to see, I think, some pretty clear tie-ins to how we can partner between the campus and the community. And then the next slide just does talk a little bit about that carbon neutrality municipality plan. Again, this is an updated version of a 2011 plan, and I think that, I know especially I've been talking with the Sustainability Commission, things like that might be a really interesting document to take a look at. And then next, we do have these documents available on our website. That is the best way to access these documents, read through them, and complete the feedback form, which would also be linked on this website. Again, because this is a lot to read through, but we truly do want your input, I would encourage you to every document has a table of contents, so I would encourage you to start there, maybe select projects and start with projects that seem the most relevant to you, and if you can tackle more, that's great, but maybe starting there. The next slide is really just a QR code to the website if anyone wants to take a look, scan it now. And the deadline for feedback is May 1st. We do want to finish up this plan and have your feedback compiled into our final document so that it can be more representative of implementable, actionable steps that we can take on campus and with the community. The last slide just kind of talks about the type of feedback we really want and the type of feedback we don't need as much of. So yeah, that's funny. Everyone gets, like, the grammar police always gets a laugh. So yeah, so we are working with copy editors. We're working with our design team. So while we know that the design and the copy may not be perfect right now, we're actually okay with that, and we will be bringing it through further review. So what we're looking for is more big picture items, things and perspectives that we've missed, things that you're reading and you have an idea or perspective as a community member that you don't feel is currently represented in this document, or you want to help us encourage to think about something in a different way. So that's the kind of feedback that we are hoping to get from our community members and from our alders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to leave the QR code up here just for another minute or two while our next presenter comes up.
Appreciate that.
Just in case. Thank you both for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm glad we could squeeze you in.
Yeah, appreciate your support. Thank you.
Steve. All right, next up, we have Jane Johnson and Danny Mercer from Partnering Together at Portage County on operations of a temporary housing facility. And I'm going to take just a few seconds to get this rolling. Share that. And we're good to go.
Hey everyone, I'm the Reverend Jane Johnson. I live and work here in Stevens Point, and I'm a board member of One Big Tent as well as Partnering Together in Portage County. And this is another board member, Danny Mercer, and back there we have another board member, Gary Veltis from Catholic Charities. Partnering Together of Portage County is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting the unhoused and working poor in the Portage County area by connecting individuals with housing, employment, mental health care, addiction recovery, and educational opportunities. Through collaboration with established community partners, many of whom have decades of service in this community, PTPC provides immediate support for the unhoused in our community, as well as providing a coordinated pathway for people to transition from homelessness to independence. Working collaboratively means we can work more effectively, economically, and efficiently. We serve all of our struggling neighbors, particularly those who find themselves on the economic margins, including many of whom who are working. We can go to the second slide. Partnering Together, Portage County envisions a community where every individual has access to safe housing, meaningful work, and supportive services that empower them to thrive. Our core values are dignity and respect for all individuals, collaboration and accountability, sustainable community-based solutions, empowerment through education and opportunity. Partnering Together is an umbrella organization, and right now our current partners that are, and all of them are represented on the board, are One Big Tent, Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, Lunch Partners, Stevens Point Community Outreach. Other board members are connected to Stevens Point Police, City Council, Noble Community Clinics, and other concerned and connected citizens. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. As we begin our two locations, the day center and the year-round overnight shelter, we are taking just the first steps towards a healthier community by supporting our citizenry who require support. This will be an improvement, surely, but it's a first step in a much longer process of building an ongoing neighbor support network. There will be more to do. It will evolve over time, and we cannot meet every need. Poverty, homelessness, food insecurity is a multi-layered problem, so it takes time, and it is a process that is best done in collaboration. Unfortunately, we cannot resolve all the issues in one fell swoop, but we are all committed to addressing all the issues. The building location of the year-round shelter at 2854 Church Street has also been part of a longer process. Several of us have been seeking a location for the past 3 to 4 years. We have considered a variety of buildings, none of which have been perfect, some of which are not even possible. When a location for the day services at 1600 Briggs Street came available, we got the day services up and running as quickly as possible because they are so needed. The day services themselves have been unfolding as providers have been able to transition to the center at 1600 Briggs Street. One Big Tent moved there this past December 1st. Next, we will be adding lunch partners and a caseworker from Catholic Charities, as well as hiring an executive director to oversee and manage partnering together. There are several reasons that this location for the year-round overnight shelter at 2854 Church Street works well. It's on the main artery in the city, it's on the bus routes, it's near a grocery store, and it's walkable to downtown and service providers, the day center, health and human services, and Noble Community Clinics. And now I would like to turn this over to Danny Mercer, who's going to share more about Stevens Point Community Outreach, the organization that's a member of Partnering Together, which runs the overnight shelter.
Danny Mercer, I am a board member with the SPCO and also on Partnering Together. I wanted to go over just briefly what the Stevens Point Community Outreach is and what we're doing. First, just our mission directly. Providing the essential resources and services for our local unhoused to survive, thrive, and be empowered to better their situation. We serve unhoused individuals with care, compassion, and respect. And I think those three words are very important to remember in everything that I talk about tonight, is compassion, care, and respect. We operate as, or have operated this season as an overnight emergency shelter. Just through the winter, our services also included providing food outside of the normal hours. We would go out on the weekends and provide food for our guests and our neighbors, offering bus passes, providing clothing, hygiene products, daily living referrals, and even relocation services. We had one of our guests who is now housed. We had one of our guests who got in touch with their family, and we were able to give them a bus pass to return to their family in a very, very far away state. Our current full-time staff have hundreds of hours working in this field, not only with the unhoused, social work in general, peer support, basically all the skills to safely manage what we call high risk or challenging behaviors, education such as in crisis prevention, trauma-informed care, conflict resolution, and then general things, first aid, CPR, and such. Our hours of operation that we ran through from November to March 31st. Our hours at the time were 8:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. I'm not going to promise anything at this meeting, but it is our hope and plan to be able to offer more hours, to be able to stay open longer. We've run into situations very recently. I'm sure you were all here for the snowstorm. And if you think about it, on that morning at 6:30 in the morning, I wasn't able to get out of my house, and we weren't able to get out of frame. We were stuck there. We had our staff and we had our guests there that could not get out. We would like to be able to reach out in a situation like that and make, well, we're just going to go ahead and stay open a little bit longer. We're going to keep it open for the whole day if we have to. Moving it into our own facility is going to give us that ability. We're very, very grateful for what Frame has done for us, but we need more flexibility in that, and of course we want it year-round. So in our first season, we had 105 separate individuals that stayed with us. Some stayed for only a night, some stayed for multiple nights. And as I said, some got into housing already. One got a job. I'm kind of jealous. He got a job, $21 an hour, just straight out. And he's working a regular job and sleeping in his car. That is still awful, in my opinion, but he is doing what he needs to do to move forward. We've also had people that have been working through their addictions, and more than anything else, SPCO this season has developed a community. And if you look at the life that the unhoused have, most people would treat them like a piece of gum stuck on their shoe. It's annoying, it's irritating, but I got to do something about it. And that's awful when you live that way. When you don't have any safety, you don't have any security, you have a dog. Dogs are great, but more as protection than as a pet. You might carry a weapon on you. I know I always carry a pocket knife, but I don't use it for defense. I feel fairly secure. But some of our neighbors are walking the streets worried about their safety. So building that community at SBCO as a warming center over this past season has helped those individuals to remember that they are people. So I want to just finish again, compassion, care, and respect. Thank you.
Thank you. And that exhausts our presentations. So we will move on to item number 6, our consent agenda. Alderkeemer?
I had 2 small corrections to minutes within the agenda. I don't think those
Okay.
require a separate vote. One was 6G for the Public Works meeting at the top of page 66 in our packet.
Okay.
We've been doing great with specifying when there's a split vote, the dissenting, but we didn't do that for Public Works. On page 66.
Noticed that too.
66. I got too many things in here. 65.
So that was the vote on the right-of-way ordinance, so I didn't know if we could just specify the 3 members who were in the minority at the very top of page 66.
Oh, I see where you're,
Yeah.
starting on page 65. Okay, we'll get those added.
Okay. And the last item was item 6I. That was our Finance Committee agenda, and I believe that's on page 72. Or actually, nope, 73. The top of page 73, number 4, I had made the motion to approve the funding. I had also added a recommendation to not have access control. I realize that's just a recommendation and not really up to council to decide, but just if that could be added to the minutes for specificity.
We'll have to go over and make sure that it was in the video. If it's in the video, then absolutely we can do that.
Okay, and that's it. That's all I had.
Okay, and so we'll take those as not even an amendment, just an addition.
Okay.
Because none of those were actually changing anything. They were just adding more information.
Thank you.
With that, the consent agenda is before you.
I would move approval.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
Seconded by Morrow. Discussion? Comments from the audience? Seeing and hearing none. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Morrow?
Aye.
Boozy?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Shuda?
Aye.
Nabone?
Aye.
Steinmetz?
Aye.
Burr?
Aye.
Broderick?
Aye.
Keimer? Aye. Guthrie?
Aye.
And Christensen.
Aye.
And that is approved. Item number 7. Item number 7, we have a few people wishing to speak. Andrea Olson.
So this has to do with the presentation of Somerville Architects and then the action to authorize insurance of a request for proposals for a new city hall facility at 1033 Ellis Street, or 1039 Ellis Street, sorry about that. I am against authorizing a request for proposals yet at this time because this project has lacked community outreach or the ability for community to provide input other than by email. And it really has been difficult to find out any information on it too. The last time this was here, it was also a presentation and only alders were allowed to ask any questions about the presentation when it was going on. And then that still lacked some communication between the alders and the presenter. We also, at the, the Finance Committee meeting, they approved an amendment to the master service agreement with Scantech Consulting Services to include a task order relating to 1039 Ellis Street site investigation. They were going to have to do some more testing there and also doing up the report for any type of remediation that might be needed. So how can you be going out for bid for things prior to knowing the exact scope of the project? If remediation is needed, are you going to be adding a disclaimer? Well, remediation might be needed, so just factor that into your bid, but we don't know what it might be yet. So good luck. It's a little hard to go do a bid and then find out that additional things will be required, and then by the time you go back to them a second time, people may have dropped out, they might have other projects too going on. So I think that at this time, we are not ready to go out for bid. It stinks. I know that this is trying to get pushed through prior to the new alders in place because they are not as familiar with the project. However, I have confidence that they could be brought up to everything that's going on pretty quickly because we have some good people coming on.
Thank you. Elizabeth Trebetuski.
Elizabeth Trebetuski, 3262 Sunflower Road. I agree with Andrea, and I would really like to see those surveys about potential remediation before we move forward trying to get projects, because it could really change the scope of the project pretty vastly. Thank you.
Thank you. And Trevor Rourke.
Hello, Trevor Rourke, 601 Washington Avenue. Am I too late? Is it still possible to have design changes after bids go out for a new contractor? Is that right?
Once the bids goes out, there are bid changes or change orders that happen. But yeah, no, that's the process that we've been working on for over a year.
Okay. Okay.
Tonight's the authorization for that.
All right. I'll be quick then. Just wanted to say it'd be really cool if we had a downtown design instead of a suburban / industrial commercial design that doesn't really fit downtown. A good example is there's just a lot of acreage around the building as opposed to fronting Water Street, allowing all ages and stages to actually access the building. And then you could potentially build 2-3 stories up instead of 2 and 1 out. And then if there's remaining land, you could have sold more to housing, build some housing. So
actually, that's the plan.
Oh, good. There's changes.
Thanks. No changes. No changes. Just forethought. Deanne Donahue.
Deanne Donahue, 3395 Howard Avenue. I know that there's been a lot of work put in on this municipal building, and it's going to cost a lot of money. The city already has a very large debt ratio. Property taxes are a very large concern of everyone in our city. As my current alderperson, when I had talked to him previously, he had pointed out that as alders, you are representing the better good of all your constituents. Well, as my husband was running for alder, we did knock on 95% of the doors within our district. Their main concerns are property taxes, number 1, roads second. With this building costing so much at this time, when people are already struggling to meet their own financial obligations so they can stay in their house, this building will cause an increase in property taxes. I think rushing things through just for time's sake is not the proper thing to do. It needs to go through the proper protocols. It needs to go through the Board of Public Works, sustainability, and whatever other committees there are. Every possible thing needs to be looked at. Those people are our experts, and we need to rely on them. You're taking the information from that to make your decisions, but the experts need to weigh in. So even though timing is important, sometimes you just have to step back. So I urge you, as I said, I knocked on a lot of doors as well as the rest of my family, and we did talk to the constituents. Many were concerned about this building as well as Knowing that we may need one, but why we needed it right now was a concern. So please keep that in mind when you're voting.
Thank you. And that's it for item number 7. Before we go too far into it, I think some people may have come late to the game, and that's our fault for not stating it at every meeting, but this is actually doing right by the taxpayers to avoid the county having to build a $100 million courthouse. The net savings is about $45 million to the taxpayers of Portage County, of which the city residents pay 30%. So this is saving taxpayers money. This is the prudent thing to do. And keeping it under that $15 million budget that we set is really critical. And Somerville is well aware of that. That's why you'll see a few options when it comes to the bid packet, which I think the bid packet was included in the packet. Was that correct? Did we put the bid packet in? It's going to be available online tomorrow, I know that, should this go through. But the design was taken into consideration. We had people that wanted to see the historic nature. The current building had been morphed so many times that people forgot what the old Weber Tackle building looked like. So we provided some data to Somerville to pay tribute to that historic nature of downtown. Things that were there long before Dye Point Scuba or those other buildings. And the office piece of that is the spit and image of what the Weber Tackle building used to be. We wanted to pay tribute to that while also being as efficient as we possibly can. You're going to hear a little bit more about that now. But the process has been going on for well over a year through several public meetings. To say that the public didn't have a chance to get involved is just wrong. There were lots of opportunities for the public to get involved throughout the process and through their alderpersons, for that matter. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Somerville, and we have a presentation as soon as I can find it. Come on. We had it up earlier. There we go. And let me just share it out. All right, I think you're good to go.
All right. Hi, I'm Justin Marcus. I'm a project architect with Somerville, and yeah, I've been a part of this project from the beginning, working with the mayor, the rest of the city staff. So I am here to kind of talk through kind of the broad range of the project that we've had so far, from the kind of early concept, initial ask. I've gone through a couple of these presentations now, so some of these slides and information might look familiar to some of the existing alders, some of the new alders. If you haven't been aware, this can hopefully help get you up to speed with all of the decisions and conversations that we've had so far. So you can go to the next slide. So really, again, right, just we're going through this project overview. So in May of 2025, Somerville was hired on for services to a two-part phase. One, to do a facilities condition assessment of the 1039 Ellis building, and then a phase 2 piece of it was to help with some conceptual design ideas for what that building could be. It was our understanding that prior to us even getting on board, the city had been looking at a handful of other buildings around the city and had kind of zeroed in on this one, knowing that there was kind of an agreement possible with the county to kind of overtake this building. So then, again, that phase 1 was that facilities assessment. So we looked at that site. So you can see the picture here, honing in on 1039 Ellis Street, and the facilities assessment that we had really targeted the whole broad scope of that existing building, the existing exterior site conditions, the structure of the building, the age, the history of it, the exterior elements, the interior elements, any accessible code issues, ADA, people moving in and throughout the building, as well as the plumbing, HVAC, electrical, the guts of the building. So as we went through that, we initially started off with a site survey just to understand the surrounding area and some of the parcels, the easements, all of that. That was a part of that project, working with some local surveying companies actually to do that. Then, as a part of our full assessment, was the historic district analysis. So as a part of this, in green you can see a part of that historical downtown district, researching the codes and the requirements for the aesthetics, actually, that explicitly had certain prescribed parameters of how the building could look, as well as height restrictions and how it can enmesh itself with the fabric of the downtown area. The city had already, kind of as we were getting on, partnered with Stantec to provide environmental hazard report, so we could identify some of those nasty, underground storage tanks, possible site contaminations going into that, so you were a little more aware when making those decisions. This is, kind of very brief, just one snapshot, but there is a full Stantec report that would be available for you to look at. The bad, nasty stuff on the outside. We also looked at the bad, nasty stuff on the inside, hazardous materials, lead, paint, asbestos, all of that kind of stuff, looking at inside the building as well. Knowing that there was possibility to renovate the building, that would be a pretty substantial cost to have to do something to the inside, or build new. You still got to get rid of it before you take the building down. So trying to do a very thorough investigation of all of those kind of smaller pieces of that budget that sometimes get overlooked when you just look at a building. You don't really think about all of that kind of other costs that go into it. And then the part that everybody kind of thinks of when, we talk about doing a facilities assessment is us actually going to the building. So all of that work going in beforehand for just the outside, prior to us actually getting our engineers out on site, walking around the building, evaluating it. We took a couple days to walk through the entirety of the building, looking at the lifespan and life conditions of all of the MEP systems, how old the air handlers were, what condition the existing generator was in, looking at the elevator systems, as much of the existing drawings as remained as we could, but then obviously just getting in there and poking our head above the ceiling. It was during that time that we kind of had seen, as the mayor had mentioned, the building had been built on. I believe there was 9 different additions over the years that had kind of created a little bit of a Frankenstein monster of systems and everything, which leading into the final report that you can see there, that we have the full information in there, but it was really determined that the building was available to be used as a remodel project, but given that it was it had reached its serviceable life for all of the mechanical systems, there was a pretty extensive amount of abatement and hazardous material present in the building, as well as, and it's not really touched on in this slide, but as the future presentation that we had with it, it was a lot more building than you guys need at this time, and so it was a lot of cost to clean up, renovate, and prepare a building currently for space that you weren't going to need to utilize for a while, given and as we touch on a little bit later, the extensive interviews that we did with the staff to understand what the current needs are for the city space needs. So then as we kind of moved into the project goals for that kind of phase 2 portion of just conceptualizing what that new city hall could be, after talking with a lot of the city staff and some of the public, we kind of determined that the goal was to provide a warm, welcoming, and efficient building to house all of the city services in one place. Currently, most of the departments were held at a mixture between 1515 Strongs Ave and other facilities around the city. And then it was also kind of a quote that stuck out to us, is that the City Hall is a community service for the community, and so the building needs to be easily navigatable for residents and a pleasant and effective space for staff, so kind of a dual purpose for everybody here, but all of the people behind the scenes with the city staff that use the building every day, as opposed to the public that interfaces it just with the pieces that they need. Some of those quotes that we actually pulled from came from our visioning session. So July 22nd, we had a, excuse me, what we call a visioning session. So it was with city staff and then Somerville staff at Mid-State Technical College, and we got together to really understand what the city staff needs to do their job effectively and well, but also kind of project goals, experiences, and vision for that. So you can see the staff actually kind of put together, provided images and words that we had so that we could kind of understand what their vision would be for that kind of workspace for them. In the bottom right, if you scroll down, you can see, so some of those boards, everybody created a board, provided it, and then gave a little presentation about that, and then we collected all of that information. If you go to the next slide. And then we pulled together a results from that, so we could really understand what those kind of bigger, broad goals and design elements were for the city. So we pulled that together for our benefit as well as for the staff to kind of reflect on how they were going to utilize that building. And if you just quickly scroll through some of the top-ranked images that were a part of that, and really what it came down to is having a timeless design and materials, creating a lot of natural light and a good space to interface with the public and provide an open and collaborative space for people to work. So then pulling that together, we honed in on the actual project scope and understanding for what the city would need for the space. So the next slide shows that we started touring and looking at the existing city hall at 1515 Strongs, understanding the space that the city's currently utilizing, how the departments are laid out, how the public interfaces with it, and some areas of efficiency that could be found within that space. Also just understanding too that currently the building is shared with the county, so there are certain square footage pieces that aren't identified in the space that you're using now because you're sharing those spaces, and kind of understanding some of those larger needs as you move to your own building. Having interviews with all of the staff, so here you can just kind of look at a brief list of all of the city staff that we had meetings with to understand how their departments work and understanding possible future growth. From that, we developed a spreadsheet, programmatic, that just understood the number of offices needed, how those size of those offices, what are some departments that need to be by each other versus don't need to be by each other, and then just accommodating for some of the current needs as well as future growth. Then based off of that, we started to develop departmental adjacencies, really wanting to understand how people flow throughout the building, how the public interfaces with these departments, and whether they're more public-facing or more staff-facing. And so creating this matrix really just kind of helped inform the design and the flow of the building. So taking all that together, we came to the kind of deliverable stage for that initial contract that we had for services of coming up with some conceptual layouts based on the schematic design, based on the departmental adjacencies, based on the programming studies that we did, and either applying that to the renovated building if we were able to come in, clean everything up, and reutilize that building, or giving just an option of, hey, here is a preliminary concept of what that new building could look like. We provided floor plans, kind of comparing those two, with like-sized rooms with like-sized rooms. You can see the council chamber, right, a big ticket item, how that could fit within the building, where's the best place to place that building. And then providing another comparison of an opinion of probable cost, OPC, as well as a preliminary schedule based on the two buildings, right? Different time scales for a renovation versus a new building, as well as giving a good estimate of what those construction costs could be. So all of that was condensed of several months of work by the city staff. We've had a couple presentations prior to that, August 18th meeting where we went over that with the alders, and we gave all of what I just talked about, and it was at that time that, if you scroll down a little bit, that it was decided to move forward with the new construction option. So then that's where we started with this new City Hall project. So at that point, when we started from, okay, this is the decision that we wanted to move forward, we came back to that first initial step and said, you know, what are those project goals? Do they still serve what was stated at that time a while ago? Discussing that with the city, and we felt like it really did you know, encapsulate that kind of need and want from the public and from the city staff side. So then we reassessed the scope and understanding of the project and really started to drill down on what those big ticket asks that were initially as a part of the visioning session, as well as meetings that we had with city staff, and then just really tried to hone in and understand, you know, what those were. Off-street parking for city vehicles that currently don't have any parking, various security screen for the city staff, large council chamber, and shared multiple meeting space. Anecdotally, too, there were several times where the only shared meeting space within City Hall was utilized for voting, and we actually had to be kind of relocated outside of the building to have some of these meetings with city staff. So that was always kind of a reoccurring thing for meeting space and just trying to provide space for the staff to do their job. So then really drilling down again a little bit more hardcore on the departments. We had that departmental matrix, but then really just going through and understanding what those are. This is just kind of another visual way to represent that kind of departmental matrix, a little less frenetic. And then going and drilling down into the OPC. So we had provided, right, just a conceptual plan of, you know, if everybody got all of their future needs that they wanted, if everybody got the meeting space within their own department, we had kind of come up with a calculation of 41,000 square feet. Again, that was smaller than what was going to be provided in the renovation option. There was still another, I want to say like 15,000 square feet of just space that you would have had and not used, heated, cooled, lit, all of that. So we had originally based that OPC off of that 41,000 square feet, but then as we started talking with the city staff and kind of understanding their needs, we were able to whittle that down within the schematic phase, as we'll kind of be going into it, down to 38,000 square feet. Now that still is accommodating for future growth. What we always like to say is when you're building a new building, you don't want it to fit like a surgical glove. You want to try to build in some of that flexibility for future use, so have it fit more like a winter mitten. And so that 38,000 square feet still accommodated some of that future growth. And as you can see, once we get into the schematic design, we can be a little more thoughtful in the planning of that future growth, rather than, well, we have a bunch of space on the third floor because we just had it. Trying to be a little more intentional about that. And then obviously, right, reviewing that preliminary schedule. We had given one as kind of a conceptual idea, but then as we started to drill into, all right, new building, what does that timeline look like? As you can see, we laid it out here, which was part of that initial meeting that we gave. But as we move through the rest of this presentation, you'll see that we adhere to that schedule. So the schematic design, like I said, throughout that phase, we had weekly meetings with the city staff to review the broad strokes of the design. The city staff actually toured some other municipal city halls to understand projects that they had, whether they be completely new builds or additions, remodels, and getting inspiration and lessons learned from their construction projects. And then we took those conceptual plans and kind of pushed them forward to develop a little bit more understanding. We also were proactive in getting soil borings for the site, kind of understanding the building capacity for the actual site itself, as well as doing a lot of early coordination with the Historic Preservation Committee, just kind of understanding what their goals were for the project, being in that historic district and having that certain palette of materials to work from, certain massing, certain locations within the site that the building could be placed, and what their guidance would want to be for that. So being very proactive about getting that all in that initial schematic design before we got too far. So from that, again, just having some of those site plans, refining the design a little bit more, understanding the parking and the public experience, right? All these people here, the people in the other room, they have to park somewhere, they have to move, get to the building at certain times, so there'll be larger influx of people versus throughout the day when it's more of a kind of slow trickle of people coming throughout the day, trying to understand the best place to lay it out on the site to develop that. And then also within that, we had kind of determined, working with the city staff, that it really made sense to be more addressing of Water Street as the kind of more historic Weber Tackle building was. Again, developing the schematic floor plan, and then using, like I was saying, that departmental matrix really started to help us take shape of the building and understand the handful of departments that are completely public-facing, need to be easy to get to, need to be easily understood, how people can get to the front door and understand, where do I go to pay my taxes? Making that just really clear, concise, and easy for the public, but also providing a nice frontage for the city itself and a safe building for the staff. So creating a kind of shared, secured corridor along the back for staff to be able to move between each other, but a pleasant space for this public, as well as municipal court and all of the things that come with that, community media, videotaping, understanding the camera setups, and daylighting throughout the day, doing solar studies. Second floor plan, again, those departments that aren't as public-facing, being able to go up to the second floor to still support that, as well as having some of those amenities for the staff. And then, as you can see, kind of at the top of that office portion there, identifying some spaces for targeted growth. So within all of the departments and the spaces that you've seen is that planned growth, so you could take over some of those spaces to utilize for immediate current needs. HR just hired a person, we got to find a spot for them. But then understanding, hey, in 10 years, this might be a certain department within city services that we want to absorb within the building, building in and designing into the structure, the mechanical, the plumbing systems, an easily expandable area on that second floor. For the kind of near to medium term, and then within the site plan, understanding kind of medium to far term expandable options as well. So then, as we moved through from the schematic design into the design development, this phase happened, you can go to the next slide, in kind of October through December, and that's really kind of polishing and refining some of the ideas that we had. It was at that time that we were still holding continual meetings with the city to understand kind of how the staff was going to be interfacing with their departments now that they were kind of in place, sizes were determined. Now it's understanding from each of the city staff, how the receptionist at the treasurer's office, how their desk is laid out, how they interface with somebody when they're coming to the reception window, where they need printers, fax machines, city clerk, how they have their scanners, what rooms need to be locked, all of those kind of refined ideas and understandings from the subject matter experts of the city staff. That was at that time that we also had several interiors meetings just to kind of understand some of the big ticket items. As you probably could tell, maybe a little bit from the floor plan, the majority of this building is a fairly traditional office type interior. We identified a handful of kind of very impactful moments for the public in terms of the central lobby space where people do a lot of interacting with city staff, and then the council chamber, right, where we're at, a lot of people coming to it. But a lot of the majority of the rest of the space really is just really high quality office space for city staff to do their job. So with the interior finish meetings, we tried to be very mindful of bringing the public in to have those conversations in those areas that, you know, they are really going to be seeing and interfacing with a lot. So understanding that main public lobby, the council chambers, and giving them lots of opportunities to discuss that. Again, refining really at this stage, getting, you know, nicer, prettier looking pictures, really bringing that into our computer programs so that we can do a lot more fun things, but still kind of keeping that same massing and the way that people move throughout the space. Again, developing those floor plans, just kind of getting more actual constructability information built into it, as well as starting to pull and develop the massing for the elevations, starting to grab materiality. Again, a little bit determined by that Historic Preservation Commission, but still fulfilling that need. The mayor actually was able to find some old images from a book for the Weber Tackle building, so kind of taking that and trying to influence the look of the building for how the space used to be. Trying to understand the look of the building on all sides, knowing that this would be kind of a prominent location. It was also at this time, as we had kind of been developing the plans a little bit more, getting more constructability, having more dialogue and conversations with staff as well as the public to understand the scope. But then it was at that point where we kind of pulled back and said, well, all right, what are some areas that we can help control and give the city opportunity to be a little bit more in the driver's seat with controlling those costs. And so that's where we identified several areas to provide alternates. Basically, it's just on the plan saying, Mr. and Mrs. Contractor, please provide a separate line item price for this. And really what we did by doing that at this stage early on was we could still develop into the plans to make sure that the aesthetics of the building were not sacrificed. And it's not just, hey, lop off, you know, the top of the building or anything like that to keep it from being detrimental, but also giving a lot of opportunities for wants and asks that the city had that might not be you know, part of the budget now, but we can design it into these plans that you're currently looking at to do that. So one of the big items that we identified was the indoor parking. So currently we're showing an 18-car parking indoor parking garage for city-owned vehicles only. Currently they park on the street wherever they can find it, fend for yourself. So that was one of the areas that they felt like could be a really nice amenity for the city vehicles. But as we were looking at it, we thought, well, you're already doing better than what you currently have with the site parking, just immediately adjacent to the building, and that's around 6,300 square feet of space that you could save. So just providing a separate line item cost for that, something easily pulled out. Doing it again at this stage, we could design the aesthetics to look good without it, and then in 10 years when you decide maybe you do want to put that in, it would be easy to do that. Some other areas that we identified, the rooftop staff area, outdoor patio was a alternate cost. As we were discussing some of the ways that staff could utilize this space in an emergency, upsizing the generator, providing some different emergency backup systems was another one that we identified and could design in, as well as providing rooftop solar, bird-friendly glass in specific areas, as well as providing an irrigation system for the landscaping around the outside. So again, identifying all of those in the bid drawings that you have, and just trying to really make it clear that you guys can have some cost control options.
I just want to elaborate on a few of these things, Justin, because some people may not understand what currently is happening. City vehicles, all of them are parked outside right now around City Hall. Some of them are adjacent to City Hall, overnight parking on the streets. Some of them are about a block away to the, I guess it would be east, in the previously city-owned portion of the county courthouse parking lot. So they have to walk through the entire courthouse parking lot to get to the city vehicles. And some of them are stored closer to where 1039 Ellis Street is on the other side of the county annex. That's simply because we don't have places on site to store them. So our staff is walking a couple of minutes each way through whatever weather we might be having to get into a car, warm it up, clear it off. So indoor parking is something that we wanted, however, not wanted to the point of going over our $15 million budget. So it can be added at any time. We can do surface parking now if the bids come in high. We can choose to do surface parking, but at least they'll all be right next to City Hall. That's what Justin meant when he said better than what we have now. But we have no reason to believe that the cost projections are outside of what is going to happen. But because there were some concerns about rampant overruns, I heard someone say it was going to be $20 million, and that's simply not the case. But if it is, then we have options. Council has options. You can eliminate these things. The rooftop staff area was something we talked about, a green roof, something that staff had asked for. But again, it's one of those wants. We can put it in at another time, but if we can afford it right away, you might as well do it right away. The generator is a good one, and Sue can attest to this. So rare as it is, we have lost power twice on Election Day. And we had lost power once at City Hall on early voting day. That happened to be the same day as municipal court. But without electricity, or electricity only on certain emergency outlets, the clerk's office was forced to run an extension cable from the county clerk's office, who had a working outlet that was on the backup generator. They ran an extension cord through the ceiling tiles so we could get our voting machines to keep them operational. So what we have is we have included an emergency backup generator just for emergencies, but we also want a separate bid for a larger generator that would basically keep us operational during power outages. It's anticipated that extra generator power is going to be about $300,000. If we can afford it now, great. If we can't, we wait and we just use the emergency backup and pay better attention to where our powered outlets are. The solar panels. We know we want solar panels. Can we affordably put them in now under that $15 million budget? We don't know yet. When it goes out for bid, we'll find out. That's why we separated them, because we could put solar panels in next year or the year after. We're building it out so they can support it. But if we can't afford them, that's an option that the council will choose to make sure we stay under that $15 million budget. Bird-friendly glass, same thing. I think that's self-explanatory. If it comes in and we can afford it, great. It's a little harder to do after the fact with the glass. However, there are augmentations to the glass that can be put on after normal glass is installed. So we'll have to determine where our priorities lie there. And the irrigation system, you want grass that looks nice, you want to have a presentable city hall, but if it means that the irrigation system puts us over budget, we can put it in later. So those are the things that are optional, and you'll see that in the bid packet, which is included, by the way, in your packet, that these will all be separate. So when the bid comes in, you will see all of it, and each of these will be listed separately. So if we do turn out to be more than that $15 million budget, we can say, okay, we'll take away that, now we're going to keep that in, and so on. So you'll have options with every single bid. Thanks for affording me that time, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, then as I was saying, with the design development, putting it in the computer, just having affording us a little bit opportunity to, show some renderings, provide some of that kind of wow factor. So then, moving into the construction document phase, which since the last time that I was here is kind of what we moved into, and I had alluded to from that. So again, holding weekly meetings with the city staff to go over the progress, as well as confirming some of the stuff with the rest of legal, Parks Department, all of those things that are looking at the drawings too and giving their weigh in. We've also been, as the mayor's highlighting, incorporating the project-specific consultants, so the civil, structure, solar, security, AV, and IT, separate consultants that we're pulling in, as well as obviously all of our in-house engineers with the MEP systems, coordinating and making sure.
And I highlighted that, Justin, because there was an accusation that it should go through certain other committees. We actually went through experts, people doing the job, to make sure that we had their input. Northwind was involved in it, low voltage, IT, AV, security experts, and so on. So while it didn't go through every single city committee, experts in their field were consulted and brought in.
That are also providing a basis of design that will be incorporated, and I'll touch on this a little bit later in the presentation, basis of design that will be a part of that bid package, so other consultants can bid on the project if they would like. It's not like they were just given any of that work. They were just brought in these early stages so that our electrical engineer could make sure to accommodate for a solar system being plopped on the roof. It was during this time that we also helped with the city to provide historic preservation review and approval, so actually providing the presentation material, bringing in all of the brick sidings, all samples, material, to get those approvals, as well as helping with the city to review the proposals for the demolition contractor for the demolition that's already taken place, just kind of getting another set of eyes on those documents, even though that wasn't a part of our construction services, as well as just refining the documents into what you're seeing before you. So all of that culmination into just a couple screenshots, but it's all really that bidding information that you have in front of you: architectural, civil, structural, fire protection, plumbing, electrical, engineer, and interiors as part of the drawings, but then as well with that bid information that the contractors would be getting is what we call the project manual. It's the specifications, so that also contains all the information for contractors on how to submit their bids, when they can submit their bids, what that bidding process looks like, who they send questions to, how they are supposed to be contacting and notifying us, insurance and bonding requirements that we had worked with city officials for, general conditions, how the construction sites are going to run, outlining that alternate list, giving us those prices, product information. When we say a brick, this is what we mean. Don't just grab whatever you think you can find. Equipment information for those specific HVAC components, electrical components that we worked with city staff to make sure that it kind of jives with the whole city building ecosystem, as well as the solar panel, AV, and security designs, having that basis of design as a part of those documents to do that. So between those drawings and then the specifications, kind of pulling that all together to that would be what we would be releasing for this bid set that we would then get that pricing back from the contractors. And then just a handful of conceptual renderings. Obviously, we're getting construction documents, getting a little bit more information in with the model that in the computer kind of affords us a lot of really nice opportunities to display, how it's going to look. And if you go to our website, you can see a lot of these are looking exactly like how the rendering shows up, just because we do a lot of work on the front end to really understand how the city wants and sees the products and the spaces in there and visualize them so that there's no surprises when we come down with the bids. So then in terms of next steps, so like I said, we would have these bidding documents, so Somerville would be still a part of the process, still a part of the team, helping to coordinate the bids, so we would be the ones, it's outlined in the bid invitation, ones receiving the solicitations from the bidders, sending out those drawings, responding to any questions, hey, what do you mean by this, making any changes as, that might come up from city or just through the course of that bid process. As outlined in there, there are some mandatory walkthroughs with the contractors and the city staff. We would be attending those as well to help answer any questions. We're projecting that it would be a 4-week bid process is what's outlined in the drawings right now, but obviously anything could be changed if you guys see fit. And then we would be attending that bid opening with you guys and the rest of the city staff to open them, get eyes on it, and then help with vetting those bids and actually going through and making sure that, certain contractors would be living up to what their outlines would be in that. And then projecting further out, you just select your contractor, great. You would be getting your contracts together with them, insurance agreements, all of that stuff. Somerville would still be a part of the team with the construction administration services, attending regular meetings on the site, coordinating more questions that the contractor might have, reviewing shop drawings once they are starting to procure those items, doing regular site walkthroughs, kind of being your eyes and ears on the site, subject matter experts, and then doing all the way through to punch lists and final closeout documents and turning the keys over. So we would be partner with you guys throughout the rest of this process, and it wouldn't just end with these documents that are before you, but just kind of a roadmap for how the next stages would move moving forward. So welcome. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Any questions on the request for proposals or how we got there for Justin? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Alderpersons, thoughts, comments, motion?
Motion to approve for bids.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Seconded by Christensen. Discussion there?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I want to go through I know people are upset about their personal property taxes, but there's also a cautionary tale. I remember in 2008, the mayor was on Portage County Board then, and they were going to vote to build a brand new jail and courthouse. And that was going to, for a new jail and a new courthouse, going to be $70 million. All right, and people voted that down, and the city and the county courthouse and jail continue to have problems, power, water, sewage, and so on, and now we're up to $170 million for both of those. And it's not going to get any cheaper. I remember Chris Holman, the former county exec, lamented about that, saying that the county had spent probably $1 million just on trophy case of studies, because people didn't want to do anything about it until it got to a point where they didn't really have a choice. Having worked in the courthouse, worked in the jail in my other job, I heard the sewage problems, electrical problems, heating problems, cooling problems, things falling apart, and so on. And working in the jail too, the sewage problems, the electrical problems that they were having there, and things that they needed to replace over and over again was costing them more and more money. And now it's gotten to a point for our jail that they're going to get fined. And we're at a point where we can't not do anything. I mean, it's not going to get any cheaper at all. Do I want my taxes to go up? No. But we're at a point where something needs to end up being done. The county has finally gotten there, and it's taken them $100 million to finally realize they need to do something about that. And with that, that's why we had to move out, because we still had the same problems. I remember some offices would be 100 degrees and others would be 30 degrees. Our police department moved out because they had sewage problems that were so bad, and nothing could be done about it. And that's why the police department's here. This has been talked about for over a year. We've had meetings over and over again about this. And I was surprised that a new bill was going to be cheaper than a remodel was. I know others were as well. I wasn't looking for a brand new shiny thing, whatever the most cost-effective thing was. If it is a new build, great. If it was going to be a remodel, fine. I wasn't looking for a gilded palace of any kind. But we're at a point where we need to make a decision on this. It's not going to get any cheaper. Services need to be done for the public, and as the mayor had said, if we could afford things, great. There's needs and wants. That's a basic thing for anything. And if we could afford things, great. If we can't, all right. But we're at a point where we need to make a decision on this, and this is not something that has just been trying to slide past the taxpayers. We've had open meetings, even had photos of some of the open meetings that we had. Some people went, some people didn't. But we're at a point where we cannot delay any longer. And we've studied this. We've had studies. We have renderings of this as well. Whatever design we have, it's not going to make everybody happy. If it does, I'd like to see that. But that's why I am in support of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
With respect to the additional soil borings that we authorized, is there a possibility that we could discover something through those borings that would cause us to change the design of the building itself, or is it more that there may just be additional costs for remediation, which is why we kind of have those options already in the bid?
So I'm going to give you an answer that sounds wishy-washy. There is always the possibility that we might find something totally unexpected. That being said, we don't expect to find anything unexpected because we have a pretty good history of what's there. We know exactly where the tank is. The DNR had signed off on the tank. We are not expecting anything other than potential remediation. And that just means pulling the soil out, taking it to the landfill. That being said, we could hit dinosaur bones. We could hit Jimmy Hoffa. Any of these things could happen, but the likelihood is pretty slim, and that is the consensus of not only staff, but I believe Stantec as well.
Appreciate the detail there. I'd be comfortable supporting, since we do have those options built in already.
Thank you.
I would just add, too, I know some of the placement of the building stuff, the site selection, where it's at in the lot was also, did take some of those findings and took those into account. So the areas that may have it were basically utilized for parking lots, just to lessen the likelihood that we would have to incur those additional costs as well.
Right. Anything else?
Mayor Wiesa, something that wasn't stated explicitly today, but I would invite you to share with the members who are tuning in, sort of the time frame pressures related to our agreement with the county and our getting out of the meeting that City Hall currently occupies. Would you mind speaking to that?
Sure. So, and that has changed slightly with the $150 million jail that is in the approval process. So I'm going to try and summarize it as best I can. We've been talking about the county needing a new jail and courthouse for more than 2 decades. City Hall functions, it's not great. We've got voting machines in former locker areas in the basement. We've got computer equipment stored in showers and bathrooms that used to be the police changing room. There's some issues. But does it work? Yes, and we are very mindful. Every person at this table contributes to property taxes as well. So we are mindful of what we're spending and how we're spending it. We've had 0% operational increases for 6 years with each of these departments, and that's part of the reason that we chose this design. But going back to the original question, as Alderperson Morrow said, it started out as $70 million for a complete jail, courthouse, justice center. It got delayed and stalled and shot down, and referendum and shot down. The county's need didn't go away either. We're shipping inmates out to different counties and paying deputies multiple times a day to drive them back and forth to their court hearings. We don't even have a place on site to hold them, not like a holding room like you see on, I don't know, TV, night court, whatever it is. So that created challenges for the county. Again, the city pays About 30% of the county taxes, 30% of what the county spends are city resident money. So this is our taxes too. The county has tried a couple of options. The city insisted, we think it's very important that the courthouse and those services stay downtown. The jail, yeah, we'd like to see it downtown, but we understand if that doesn't work. So through the course of those deliberations, the county came to us and said, hey, would you be interested in potentially vacating the 27% of the building that we owned? That was a weird one too. In 1958, the county and the city entered into the joint building and we owned 27% of that. The county owned the rest of it. So they said, would you be interested in doing that? Because we'd like to explore remodeling this building for our courthouse instead of building new, because a new courthouse is going to be between $80 and $100 million. We want to see if this would happen. So we talked to the council and everybody else said, yeah, we could do it. We just have to get the details down. So they did their study, and lo and behold, their study said, well, if you take the entire building and remodel it, you can check off almost all of the boxes that you need for a courthouse. Holding cells, they call it a sally port to drop prisoners in and out, a potential for a fourth circuit court, security for family court, veterans court, drug court, all of those things, some of which now were being held in former conference rooms. The family court was being held in a room a third this size, I think, with one ingress egress. Arguably the most volatile of hearings. When you're talking about someone's family, it can get pretty aggressive. And the regional court commissioner said, no, you can't do that anymore. So the county was put between a rock and a hard place to make accommodations for that. So we brought it back to council and we said, okay, what can we do? So we started looking at everything. Everything was on the table internally at staff. Even buildings we didn't own, we looked at everything. And we weighed all the options and brought a few of them to the council. Some of them were parking issues. Some of them were, there was a question about why isn't it 3 stories or 4 stories? Well, it's all about department efficiencies. The building's laid out the way it is because those departments work together. And right now they're on different floors. Putting them back on different floors or spreading them out even further creates more wasted time, more inefficiencies, not only for staff, but the people that we serve. So that's part of the reason the design is the way it is. So those options were brought to council with all of the background information we could provide, and the council chose to pursue 1039 Ellis. The nice thing about 1039 Ellis is with negotiating with the county already owned it. They bought it back in 2014 for the sole purpose of tearing it down and using that whole site to build their justice center. That obviously didn't happen, and that's why Create got some space in there, and there have been a few other minor things in there, but the county figured they'd get some money out of it rather than just let it sit empty. So we worked out a deal where we would trade our 27% and part of the parking lot that we own way on the other side of the courthouse parking lot in exchange for the properties that you see now here for 1039 Ellis. County brought it to their county board. They agreed. We brought it to council. Council agreed. So now we had to determine, do we rebuild on 1039 Ellis, or do we use the existing building? Because it's probably in still pretty good shape. They evaluated both options, and it was so close, the cost of building new versus a remodel, that the council chose, and I don't want to speak for everybody here, but the council, I believe, chose to build new because remodeling, even though it was about the same cost and would probably look better publicly, didn't create any of those efficiencies. You'd still have people in multiple departments. There was barely an 8-foot ceiling, so the ceilings were lower than this in the existing building, and you obviously can't raise a ceiling very easily. And we had more space than we needed, and because we hadn't yet dug into all of the works, you're going to need new HVAC. The elevators might need to be replaced. All of the things that you were buying were also as old as the building. So there were a lot of unknowns. And because of that unknown, and most importantly, the close cost of building new and being able to stay under that $15 million budget, council chose the build new option, which is bringing us to where we are today, taking a year to evaluate that, bringing in the most important people, the people who are doing the jobs. First and foremost, employees and department heads were brought in. What makes you inefficient? How can we fix that? We brought those in. We brought in a few members of the public, other departments, trying to figure out how we can make this as efficient as possible, using outside lighting, trying to keep under that budget. And Justin knows I harped on him about the timeline and the budget. The timeline came into play because the county needed to do something yesterday. They didn't want to wait too long, so they wanted out as soon as we could so they could begin their remodel process. So they couldn't start their remodel until we were out of our 27% of the building. So that's what they've been planning on. Now, the timeline has changed a little bit because of the way the debt is going to run potentially for the $150 million jail that they're building in Plover. So they're going to start doing some of the remodel, they're calling it the single point of access, putting in a security at the main doors of the courthouse, which means all of the city staff will have to go through the courthouse door now for those few months that we're still going to be in that building. Once we vacate, then the county can start their remodel. So when we're breaking ground, the county is going to be going out to companies like Somerville to get the design work done, because they can do all of the design work ahead of time while we're still there, and they should be able to hit the ground running. As soon as we move out, they should be able to start that remodel, because they're going to have to move all the existing court facilities out, which is why they purchased the Leibachens building on the south side. I know it as Leibachens. Other people might know it as other things. They're going to be moving those existing courthouse functions somewhere else so they can remodel that building, gut it to the studs, if you will, and remodel it from the ground up for their new courthouse, and then they'll be moving back in. So that's why the timeline is very critical, and Justin knows I harped on that too with the projected timeline. There's a little flexibility in there, but really the county wants us out as soon as we can get out, and we can't get out until we have someplace to go. So at this point, we no longer own our 27% of City Hall. We do own 1039 Ellis Street. And hopefully after tonight, we'll be going out to bid. We have a special meeting. I think the clerk has contacted all of the alders and the new alders for a May 26th meeting, right?
I have not.
Someone contacted them because I know we have a quorum. I think it's May 26th. That's after the bidding, after we review the bids to then approve the bids, or at least review them for approval. And then we're hoping to have a groundbreaking as early as June to give the contractor as much time as they can to build this thing out. And we're expecting occupancy in summer of '27. Does that answer? No?
Well, I appreciate you speaking to the collaborative nature, the fact that this project and this project's timeline is closely tied to the fact that our county does not currently have safety for their staff and for the folks who engage with the courthouse. And as a citizen of this community, that concerns me. And so while we might, reasonable people, I think as Alder Morrow said, might disagree about the brick or how close the building is to the sidewalks or other things, we are not in a position to dither when the safety of our community members is at stake, and when us moving forward as a community on the progress of some of these major infrastructures and processes have been delayed for so long. So I too have concerns about the process and the ultimate the documents that have been presented tonight, but none so much that I want to decline to support it moving forward, and so I'll be voting in support. Thank you for your comments about the timeline.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments? Alder Lang?
I was just first say thanks for all the work everybody's done on this.
Alder Lang, I can't hear you. Can you sit forward? Thanks.
Sure, Jackie. Let's just say
microphone right there for you.
First, thanks to the city staff that's put a lot of time and work into this. I had a couple of concerns, and I was happy to see something I was heard and some things got updated. But I was just curious, as a point of clarity, What are we going to be voting on when it comes to the landscape and planting schedule? Because I saw there's multiple ones in there. Is that still open for tinkering in that? Is that, or like we're going to get those bids back and then pick one? Is that what the process looks like?
So, Alderperson, yes, that is the process. However, the important piece, the one that needs to be completed, is the building. As you know, landscaping can be changed.
And that's why I was just a point.
At any point.
What am I voting on?
And we have, having our own forestry department is a big help with that. They're doing some of the work, but they said they don't have enough people power to do all of it. So some of that is included. But can that be changed at some point? Absolutely.
Okay. Because I just saw we have several plans in there, and I was just like, are we picking one tonight, or is that not what we're doing?
So the bids will go out, and we're hopeful that a lot of companies are going to bid on it. And we will have a review team to go through them and see who meets the criteria, select the one that we feel, one or two that we feel is the best, present them to the council, and then they'll go ahead. Now, can we change a red oak to a red pine? Sure. Can we change 5 trees to 5 shrubberies? That would be okay too. There's flexibility in those things, but the big pieces, what kind of low voltage are we running, where security cameras going, what type of glass is going to be used, those need to be set, right? There are things that are flexible. The color of the walls, still flexible. They can build it out, and if it turns out we don't like it, we just repaint it. We haven't done any of the artwork, nor have we done, and this is important to know, have we done any of the furnitures. So what staff has been directed to do is, everybody's got a desk now, pretty much. Anything that we can use, we're going to continue to use. Anything new that we need to buy, as Justin said, we have one conference room that used to be a break room. Before that, it was the assessor's office, and we've been shifted to county rooms on multiple occasions. We'll have a bunch of conference rooms, small to large. We don't have tables for those. That is going to all happen through the capital process, which is going to start in July. So staff right now is taking an inventory of what they have, what they need to replace, and then we'll be reviewing that all through the capital process. And of course, council has the say on that. So no furnishings are really included in this, just fixtures.
Can you help us understand designing the inside of a building without taking bids for that, for furniture?
Furniture?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I understand the question. We're designing the rooms, the space, but whether we have folding chairs or
Looks like we have an expert that would like to
rolling
speak
chairs.
to that. Look at
Yes,
him, he's
go ahead,
ready.
Because I don't think I quite understand.
Yeah, so I think I understand what you're saying, and so as a part of our services, we have in-house interior designers as well, and we've actually been the ones that have kind of paired the city with a handful of vendors that we like and approve, and they're actually in the middle of kind of interviewing and vetting those out for their purposes. But our interior designers and our staff have designed a lot of the offices around kind of the typical usage of what we're seeing for office buildings, and then you guys can select the kind of level and quality of furniture. If you want it all powered, there's some opportunities within the design of the building for that, or if it was just a typical office, there's still space to accommodate that.
If I may ask
Absolutely.
a follow-up question. So I'm moving into a new building this week, my team and I, at my day job. It's beautiful, and each office and cubicle and reception, we got the design bid together, furniture and infrastructure. I'm wondering if it would serve you well and us well to include as an option that bidding for that, or if those are just different teams and the contractor wouldn't sub that out. Because I'd love to see what a comprehensive package of furniture that fits the building would look like in this design. But you tell me if including solar and generators as an option right now makes sense, but not interiors that match the building, or if we could actually ask for that in bid as well.
As a part of our preliminary design process, we did account for a lot of the powered type furniture that those staff
Learning how to
needed
use mine now, yeah.
And so in those areas, that was already just kind of a part of the design. Most of the other office space are are kind of private offices that don't really require that kind of specialty infrastructure to support those types of furniture pieces. We'd be more than happy to help you guys with that. That was not a part of our original scope of services, furniture selection, because I'm sure, as you could appreciate with your guys' move-in, that is an entire rabbit hole that you could go down, as well as doing the inventory of what you guys currently have, how that new furniture would get designed. That's why we kind of handed off a lot of that to those furniture vendors that we trust, to the city to help with coordinating that. So a lot of that has been thought ahead of time. It's just in terms of as a part of the bid package, and then knowing that there was going to be kind of a capital campaign later to handle that, it wasn't a part of this bid package.
Well, and I think that's helpful for the public to know, right? The cost that we're seeing does not include
Correct.
furniture.
So if you look through some of the OPCs that we provided, so our scope, opinion of probable cost.
Thank you. Told you about acronyms.
And so our scope of services really just cover the construction cost. So the way that we kind of describe it is if you were able to pick up the building, turn it upside down and shake it, everything that didn't fall out would be what was a part of our bid package. So the furniture, all of that kind of stuff.
That's where you had the one slide that basically indicated construction costs of being around the $15 million.
Correct.
But then there was the additional funds for design services and furniture and all those things. That's what brought it to that 17.
Correct. So a lot of firms, what they do is just provide you the cost of the building, but obviously knowing, as the mayor's mentioned multiple times, your kind of all-in cost and wanting to be good team players with you guys, we developed that opinion of probable cost a little bit more for that total project cost. So understanding the furniture, the abatement. We've had some projects where some of the clients didn't understand that the cost of the land was a factor that they should probably put into their budget. Obviously, you guys already had that accounted for, but things like that. And so if you look at some of the other cost estimates that we provided, the kind of preliminary initial would be the construction cost of the building, what should be a part of this bid package, but then us trying to help see around, corners and help you guys anticipate that total cost. But again, as we've kind of been discussing, that furniture cost could be very wide-ranging depending on what you get. So just trying to give you guys a little bit more scope, but that's all your decision from there.
I would be chagrined if I walked into the new building and thought, this is so beautiful, and then saw a reception desk right at the council from the 1970s that's held up on cinder blocks, right? We want to provide our staff with good working conditions and with the community, right? An interface that is accessible and modern and all of those things. So thanks for just elaborating on what is and isn't covered as we consider the vote for this evening.
Yes, and there are certain elements to built-in kind of furniture pieces that are a part of this. So the front of the council chamber, right, that is a built-in piece. That's not a furniture provided by other, if you're looking at the drawings, you'll kind of see that if you know how to read those drawings, but really it's a lot of the dashed by other is really, you guys are the other providing that for the contractor. These bid drawings are really telling the contractor, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Contractor, this is what you are going to be procuring for the construction project. So,
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Yes.
I actually thought of this afternoon. I was looking at the plan set that we got from the Community Development Director. Maybe the architect would be better able to answer this. During the design process, in the office spaces, the conference rooms, the council table, if someone is in a wheelchair, was that designed for? Are the doors wide enough to accommodate wheelchairs? Is the whole building accessible? If an alder is confined to a wheelchair, is there enough space? I mean, Dean and I are so close, we're going to be engaged pretty soon. We're a little tight together here. If somebody should happen to be confined to a wheelchair, would there be enough room at that table to accommodate that and move the chair away?
Yes, so as a part of new construction, the building will be fully accessible per ADA code, minimum. But as with talking with a lot of the city staff, we went a little bit above and beyond with certain elements of the design to go a little bit above and beyond that code minimum. So providing a little bit wider doors than what a wheelchair accessible would be, as you can see in one of the renderings, providing ramps. Anybody can get to any spot within the building, providing those life safety elements as well within the building. So.
Even the service windows, which we don't have now, will have ADA accessibility for those in a wheelchair.
Correct.
In that drawing, it just looks a little tight there to get down the hall and then behind that table.
That might be an artifact of the rendering and kind of not seeing the scale.
It's like there is a ramp there,
Yes, off to the left, that is a ramp, but it's 4.5 feet wide.
Wide enough.
Code minimum is 4, so, just, again, going a little bit above and beyond.
You can see some of the service
providing
windows here.
all of the reception windows with wheelchair access, elevator to be able to move within the entire building. So yes.
Thanks.
Pathways from the parking into the building, how to maneuver, from that initial point of getting to the facility, from the parking all the way through toilet rooms, baby changing stations, all of that. And I guess one thing to note with the timing of this project is that Wisconsin recently adopted a new building code. And so this building meets, obviously, all of those building codes, but one of the elements of that are larger, more accessible turning radiuses and bathroom clearances and grab accommodating. So you will actually be well above any brand new building that you would already have around. So
that's part of the reason the building is set back a little bit further from Water Street, is to have some, we'll call them customer parking spots. So if you parked on the side here, you'd have to go all the way up to get into the entrances. These are going to be closer and more accessible.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none. If you're in favor, you'll vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no.
Take any questions from the audience?
We had speakers. Did we get through the speakers?
We had speakers before he presented.
Yeah. Are there any additional comments? All right. Oh, yes, ma'am. Come on up. Yeah, nobody can hear you if you don't have a microphone.
Oh, yeah, I'm loud enough.
So you have to come to the lectern.
The meeting's being recorded, and people can't hear it on the recording otherwise.
Right. Thank you for that clarification.
I just wanted to say that I agree with Mayor Wiesa about the existing building that the county had owned, and I cannot believe that this is close in cost, because this is a beautiful building and very efficient. I don't know how you would have made that. I was in that building several times. I don't know how you would have made that efficient. So I have a feeling they would have run into a lot of unexpected costs in that building. So yeah, I definitely agree on that. That's all I wanted to say.
Anyone else? All right. If you're in favor, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. And the clerk will call that roll.
Christensen?
Aye.
Guthrie? Aye. Keemer? Aye. Broderick?
Aye.
Burr?
Aye.
Steinmetz?
Aye.
Kneebone?
Aye.
Shuda?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Boozy?
Aye.
And Morrow.
Aye.
And by unanimous consent, that passes. Item number 8 is a public hearing. I know we had Judy signed up for it, but Judy, you don't need to identify yourself for the public hearing. So item number 8 is a public hearing for 2025 Street Improvement Project 25-101, special assessments for the installation of storm sewer laterals, water service, and sanitary laterals. Director Lemke, did you want to give us okay. Everybody knows what they are, right?
No.
I'm here.
There. Sorry, there's a question, I guess it's not a question. Sorry, there was a chat. I wasn't following the chat. I noticed there is a fitness center in the new City Hall designs. Will that be available to all city employees? Generally speaking, yes, as if you can call it a fitness center, what we have now. is available to employees. We take our wellness program very seriously, and as Manager Frosch would tell you, we've reduced the number of claims significantly by implementing that wellness program. So employee wellness is one of our top priorities. All right, so the public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on that special assessment for the installation of storm sewer laterals, water service, and sanitary laterals, come to the lectern. State your name and address for the record, please.
Judith McDermott. The property that I have there is 618 Washington Avenue. And I guess I spoke with a few of the neighbors, not a lot. I expected more here tonight, but I know that one Mike Conkle takes care of a disabled man, so he, I'm sure, wasn't able to attend. But this kind of came as a surprise, and I'm wondering if I missed something, because we attended one of the first meetings that they said, oh, there shouldn't be any cost to anybody here. And, you know, anybody in the area, this is a city project that was needed. And then all of a sudden we get this letter saying that everybody's being assessed $1,500. And I guess I'm not familiar with how the assessment process works too. Does it get, I thought it would be attached to next year's taxes. So I'm like, okay, we have plenty of time to get this. But then when I read the most recent letter was that, no, you're going to get another letter saying when it's due. And so I guess I just had questions about it. Sure. And I know Mike was like, they told us this wasn't going to cost anything. We wouldn't have the cost. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I read every letter in detail. So I can't say for sure that we weren't informed. It's just, I know I didn't hear anything about it. The people I spoke to didn't hear anything about it. So.
Judy, that is the most honest comment I've ever heard here, I think. Admitting maybe I didn't read all the letters.
Maybe I didn't.
So because this is a public hearing, Judy, we have to take testimony. What I'll do is after the public hearing is closed, I will have Director Lemke come up and explain the process of the letters, the notifications, the construction, and then I'm going to have our Comptroller Treasurer come up and talk about how people could choose to pay that assessment.
Okay, well, I don't want to make everybody here for another hour because of my questions.
But it's important information, and if you're curious, I'm sure there's others that
yeah, and I told Mike, I said, well, I'm going to go to the meeting, so if you can't make it, I'll find out.
They can always call City Hall or the Utility Department, get the answers, but we're going to go through them here tonight anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Public hearing is still open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on that, step forward. Public hearing remains open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing is open. Seeing and hearing no one wishing to offer testimony, including online, I will declare the public hearing closed, and we'll move on to item number 9. But before we do that, Director Lemke, could you come up and explain the process of the letters, what we know then, what we find out when we dig, who gets charged for what, and then I'll have Comptroller Treasurer Laddick come up and talk about options.
Yeah, so it's a process always changing, by the way, you know, as far as the way we communicate and what even gets assessed. I'll go back just a little bit first and say that on projects that are reconstructions like this, we actually used to assess for any sewer lateral that was clay, so implying it was old, any water service that was what we call a curb box service, so it was on its own. It predated the city owning the utility, so before 1922. And we got to a point where we stopped assessing for those just because of the fact that if they're still in operating condition, it seemed like, okay, we replaced them all anyway. We dig through them all. So assessing one and not the other didn't seem very equitable. On the storm laterals, where this occurs in the literature, it's so at the public meetings we hold. Right now, that is among the only things that gets assessed. Sometimes there's a little curb and gutter or something like that, but it's usually storm laterals right now. And so everybody knows when things go in the first time, like consider a new development, something like that, it's kind of developer paid or owner paid. And so even though in our subdivisions that we're doing these reconstructions and all the infrastructure is there, what isn't there in a lot of cases is a stormwater lateral. We have situations where we need to tell people that they can't discharge that stormwater over the sidewalk, out the face of the curb, in a way that affects their neighbor, so on and so forth. But if we don't have an affordable way to tell them, to show them how to get rid of it, in other words, if every time we have one of those orders, the result is dig across to the other side of the street, do curb and gutter, sidewalk, and a 20 by 20 patch of asphalt, right there, you're in the thousands and thousands of dollars, right? So in parts of town where we do reconstruction projects and it's wet or has the potential to be, and what I mean by that is sometimes you'll find houses where the foundation is only 3-4 feet in the ground, they're built out, you can see their basement windows very visibly, you know. That oftentimes is because of high water or rock or both. And in the redevelopment of those parts of towns, very likely there's going to be a desire to go a little deeper, or patterns can change and all of a sudden you have a water issue you didn't have and now you don't have a way to get rid of it. So in the parts of town where it can be an issue, they get assessed. At the pre-con meetings and at the open house meetings, we do our best to talk about that. Sometimes if we split up real early and we get to talking, it might not be caught by everybody, but it is in the frequently asked questions for all the literature that is sent out by the engineering department. So I don't know if I hit everything you wanted me to.
I think that'll cover it. Yep, we're looking good. Comptroller Treasurer, can I have you come up and...
I have a question. How old are the storm laterals there now? I mean, how old is the plumbing there in those houses about now?
They're not there most of the time. There are some structures that have them in those parts of town, but
20s, 30s.
But the utilities that we're replacing, if that's what you're asking, yeah, they can be right around before our water utility. So that was 22. They can be either side of that. Usually now we're dealing with stuff in the mid 30s to mid 40s a lot of the time. There are times when because of the fact that the need for the road and the surface elements doesn't always pair up perfectly with when utilities need replacing, that they're slightly newer. But typically, depending on the traffic of a road, there's either 2 or 3 full roads. So a road will get reconstructed once or twice over one set of utilities. We're shooting for 100 years on our utilities.
Okay.
And as far as, I mean, the ones that are built out of wood are getting less and less frequent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've never seen that here, but it's a thing.
So, and then the process, once the special assessments are approved, basically everybody gets a letter which explains your options, and you can either pay in full within 30 days, or you can also finance it over 5 years or over 10 years, and then that goes on your tax bill in installments. So, in the interest rate on the 5-year would be 4.5%, on the 10-year it'd be 5.5%.
And there's no penalty for early payment. If I just need a year to pay it, I can take the 5-year option and just pay it off in a year, and I'm only charged the interest for that short period of time. Is that correct?
Yep, just for the time that it's outstanding. And the other thing is, if we don't hear anything back from you, if we don't get that letter back, then we default to just putting everyone on the 5-year payment plan for those who don't return the letter.
Okay.
So.
Thank you on that, because I'm going to be going out of town and like this letter.
Thank you. All right, item number 9 is the final resolution for those 2025 street improvement project 25-101, the special assessments for installation of storm sewer laterals, water services, and sanitary laterals.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Seconded by Lang. Discussion there. Any additional comments from the audience or online? Seeing and hearing none. Clerk, please call that roll.
Morrow?
Aye.
Boozy?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Shuda?
Aye.
Nebel?
Aye.
Steinmetz?
Aye.
Burr?
Aye.
Broderick? Aye. Keemer? Aye. Guthrie? Aye. And Christensen?
Aye.
And that is approved. Item number 10 is approval to sell the property located at 281 Washington Avenue with the parcel identified in your packet for the purpose of constructing a residential dwelling. Andrea Olson.
I've been saying that we should really get rid of a lot of our publicly owned properties for a while now. However, this is an interesting case because municipalities selling land directly to private entities without going to public market, often referred to as direct negotiation or private treaty sales, raise significant concerns regarding transparency, fiscal responsibility, and public trust. While sometimes used to expedite development or secure specific community benefits, these transactions can lead to accusations of corruption, undervalued sales, and loss of public assets. That's what Yale law and policy says. I know for a fact that this property and some other properties have never made it to public market. I reached out to the city on multiple occasions about this specific lot. I'm no longer interested in it because a friend actually ended up building someplace else. However, why are we selling this lot right now? If you look at it, this lot will end up being free because if it's sold at $25,000, the grant for infill is $25,000, which that's great for a single family that wants to build their first home or build a second home, as in the case for this couple. However, the lot's 6,300 square feet. We're redoing our zoning code rewrite right now, and that lot is actually it's a block away from me. It has, at the very least, 6 duplexes on that street. So a single family house that is estimated at about $200,000 or even $251,000 is $5,325 in taxes for the city. However, with the zoning code rewrite, this lot's probably going to become available to be a zero lot line house. This lot also, the house right behind it, is a duplex that is a raised ranch. So this lot, if they do a 2-story build there, has a view of the river, making the value of that property a lot more desirable. So I think that this should go out to public bid because when you look at the price of the zero lot line houses on 4th Street, and how much they're selling for, $317,000, or that was $251,000, and so then you'll end up with over $10,600 in taxes. So your lot can actually have double the value. And when we're talking about housing density, and we're going and not trying to have this as a duplex or 2 zero lot line houses, it sort of goes against everything that we're doing. We just went against that also on 2nd Street, where we sold that lot, and that house is still sitting vacant. It's been on the market for at least 6 months, if not longer than that. $317,000. It was a prefab home, came in there very quick, built slab on grade, 4 windows, and it's still sitting there vacant. We should look at making all of our properties available online, so then everybody can build on, or everybody can bid on them, and then choose which bidder is the best for our community.
Thank you. All right. Thoughts, comments, motion?
We discussed this before. I would move to approve the sale.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lang. Discussion?
Yeah, I guess I don't necessarily disagree in concept that we should be putting those out on the market. I do think in this case, we've already taken a look, and we do have a recommendation from a committee. I think for this one, I'd be comfortable supporting this one, but I do think that the idea of that general concept of putting it out on the market is actually a good one. So,
and I agree with you, President Christensen. We've been trying to put as many on the market as we can. However, it's not always practical. And this one, I think, speaks directly to our housing affordability initiative. Right? Just because we can get more for it doesn't mean we should. If housing affordability is one of our prime directives, the more you have to pay for the house or the taxes or the lot, the more out of reach it becomes. So I think this is speaking directly to our housing affordability initiative that President Lang brought forward. All right. Any other comments? Hearing none, clerk, please call that roll.
Christensen?
Aye.
Guthrie? Aye.
Kiemer.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
And Morrow.
Aye. And that is approved. Item number 11 is the approval of the purchase of the property located at 809 Division Street with the parcel identified in your packet. Director, did you want to provide an update before we do that? Yeah, that's you.
I thought maybe one of the other ones would step up and take it for me. Yeah, so an update on this. We were able to discuss this in closed session, talk about kind of where we were in the starting price. Staff did go back to negotiate the price. UW Credit Union was willing to work with us a little bit on the original price. Did not get down to zero, obviously, as we would have hoped. Did try, please know. But the price that is in front of you today is the lowest that they said they would go. They said they do want to work with the city on the partnership of securing that land for future public safety needs, but that is the lowest that they'd be willing to go at this time. So.
Okay. Thank you. And Alderperson Guthrie, thank you for that suggestion. Working through that.
You're welcome.
Thoughts, comments? Motion?
I would move approval of that purchase. I do think that, as was explained at our meeting last week, it is the ideal location, and I do think that it will cost some cost now, but if we end up in a landlocked situation and have to move to a less than ideal location and build everything from scratch, we're going to be spending considerably more money, so I see this more of an investment than I do as an expense. So,
thank you. Is there a second? Second by Kneebone. Discussion? Yes.
This gives our fire department options, and that's what they need. The engines in the trucks aren't getting any littler, and there's not a lot of parking over there to begin with, and if they need to extend the building to accommodate the length of the trucks and the engines, they lose all their parking. And when someone gets promoted or is a new hire, they have a ceremony at the fire station, and family members come. And there's not a lot of places to park for that either. So the ability to acquire that property gives the fire department the options that they're going to need going into the future to keep our community safe. So I'm in support.
Any other comments? Yes.
Just to give an idea of how spatially constrained the fire department is at Station 1, I did a tour with Chief Moody, and you can actually see dents in the bumpers of some vehicles where they have to like touch each other to get them all into the building. So I think as we look for what their redevelopment might look like in 2042, 2045 of that station, having options in the area now, we could avoid a situation like the courthouse. Maybe it's $425,000 now, but in 2042 it's $170 million.
Anything else? Comments from the audience? Online? Hearing and seeing none, just to be clear, you are voting to submit the offer to purchase. That doesn't mean it's going to be accepted, but you are voting to submit the offer to purchase. If you're in favor, you'll vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no, and the clerk will call that roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Kiemer.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
And Christensen.
aye.
And that is approved. Item number 12 is a revised right-of-way plat and relocation order for the north segment of Business 51/Division Street from Franklin to North Point. Director Bradoon, I saw you come in. Did you want to recap anything?
Not really.
Not really. That's fair.
But no, I figured it's just this others came up. What we're trying to do as we work through the right-of-way plat and the acquisition is identify areas where maybe we can save some money or hopefully make everybody's life a little bit easier. So there are a couple of changes at Maria Drive that we have, both on the east side, both the one on the north, one in the south. So we're revising on the north side to add a permanent limited easement for some access agreement, which should then reduce the overall damages to that property. And on the south side, we're at a very large disagreement as far as what the value and other impacts are in that. So what we've done is actually eliminate much of the temporary limited easement to reduce the overall cost to the city for that work. So we've been working with AECom to see how we can get the work done without necessarily as much of the temporary limited easement. So those are the two changes on the plat that exist today. Both tended to save money.
Can I ask you to take over just briefly while I leave the room? I'll be back in just a second. Well, more than a second.
Thank you, President. Okay, any questions of the director by the council?
No.
Okay.
I'm happy to move approval if.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Alder Guthrie and a second by Alder Morrow. Please call the roll.
Christensen?
Aye.
Guthrie? Aye. Keemer?
Aye.
Broderick? Aye. Burr?
Aye.
Steinmetz?
Aye.
Kneebone?
Aye.
Shuda?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Uzi?
Aye.
And Morrow.
Aye.
Okay. Next item on our agenda will be item number 13, Ordinance Amendment, a request from the City of Stevens Point to amend Chapter 23, the zoning ordinance of the Revised Municipal Code of the City of Stevens Point. The said request amends Section 23.02, parenthesis 4, parenthesis C, pertaining to general standards and land use regulations within the AH Airport Height Overlays District.
Being Joel?
Yeah. I'm hoping Director Lemke would be available to give us a little bit of feedback on this.
He's probably in the overflow.
Director Lemke, are you in the overflow? Somebody should wake him up. Director Kevel, you want to speak to this?
Yeah, happy to. So this is an item that we had taken to Plan Commission. This is specifically relating to an airport height overlay district. It adds specific standards in place for the airport district relating to glare and other standards that are similar and specialized to an airport. So the reason it's an overlay district is just to better establish those over the airport, essentially. So happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Move approval.
We have a motion, move approval.
Second.
By Alder Guthrie and a second by Alder Steinmetz. Any questions or comments, any other things from the council? Any from the public? Hearing none, please call the question.
Morrow?
Aye.
Uzi?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Shuda?
Aye.
Kneebone?
Aye.
Steinmetz?
Aye.
Burr?
Aye.
Broderick?
Aye.
Keemer?
Aye.
Guthrie?
Aye.
And Christensen.
Aye.
Thank you, President Christensen. The waistline grows, the bladder shrinks. Item number 13? 14. All right, item number 14. We have a few people wishing to speak. We'll start with Trevor Rourke.
Trevor Rourke, 601 Washington. I just want to say that I support the Door to Dreams development. It's a really cool project. I've been supporting it for a long time, as well as the additional housing that's planned in the other section of the area. However, I do want to share my concern that it seems more recently a new roadway, Academy Avenue, I believe, was planned in this project we're seeing tonight. And it looks like, to me, there's going to be a lot of wetland filling in. I think this project, the two different components, Door to Dreams, as well as the additional housing, could still be built without building that additional roadway. I'm a fan of grid-style roadway networks, so this is against what I usually would say, but this is a wetland. We're in the midst of some major climate change problems. We have to mitigate those problems. We have to be resilient. Filling in wetlands right now is a bad idea. So if we can just kind of think beyond this project and some of the benefits a roadway would bring, maybe we could think about less impact, but same benefit with the housing and Door to Dreams. So I know that means changing some things, but I wish for that to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Raymond Cal.
Thank you. I'm Raymond Cal. I'm asking you to postpone a decision on this item in order to have the DNR carry out its public hearing on this project. This project was approved at the Planning Commission meeting 14 days ago, 2 weeks ago. The DNR has received multiple requests for a public hearing, and their procedure is that they will hold a public hearing on this. So I would urge you to postpone this decision until that public hearing can take place. Like Trevor and like almost everyone I've ever talked to, everyone is supportive of Doors to Dreams. I certainly am entirely. However, the convent project we've been developing for a 5-year period now, many people in the public have attended multiple sessions where we've talked about the priority is preserving the wetlands and minimizing the impact of the wetlands while developing the project for things exactly like Doors to Dreams, the townhomes that we've already built, and the additional housing in this project. So we're all for that. However, when the proposal was put forward to build, to include the road building and everything, honestly, it came in under the radar. I found out about this project on Thursday evening last week when I received in the mail a notification from the DNR. Somehow 5 years ago, I got my name on a list to be informed of things coming up. So they sent me a notification on April 6th, which I received on Thursday, telling me about this project. So I've had a very short period of time to jump in and review it. I think this is important in the scope of what's taking place to give the public a chance to come in, ask questions, examine the plan as presented, and make suggestions if need be on improving it. Now, I realize the plan is, quote, preliminary, and by that can change, but once you build a road, it's not preliminary, it's done. And after approval of this, the next step for the city will be to put the roads to bid, to get bids in on the road building project. So that is not at all preliminary. Again, I think it's too important to not give the public a chance. Now, I know at the Planning Commission minutes that I reviewed, it appeared there were 2 people at that meeting who spoke on this topic. There are certainly way more people in Stevens Point interested in this topic. It's just a reflection of the fact that it was under the radar. They didn't know about it. So that's, again, the reason I'm asking you to postpone this until the DNR has its public hearing. The other reason I would ask you to hold off on it is in the materials that were given out at the meeting, it did not include any details on the wetlands, destruction of wetlands, so it didn't specify how much wetlands is being destroyed. In talking with the DNR representative on Friday and in communicating with him again this morning via email, I confirmed that the way the project is now, the city will have to mitigate for about 4/10 of an acre of wetlands that are being destroyed by the project. So we do have that mitigation taking place. There was nothing in the packet that tells us what the cost of buying those credits from a wetland bank will be. I think that's important to consider before a decision is made. In the packet information, where some of the roads are shown are inaccurate. It's not entirely accurate. Your map in the packet shows Academy Drive going all the way west of Meadow to where the Doors to Dreams Lodge will be built. Academy will actually stop at Meadow. So there needs to be some corrections made to reflect what's actually going to be done. I think that's important for the public to be able to see before you make your decision. In summary, I support the project. I'm just asking you to wait until the DNR has its public hearing, which will be done shortly, and this can be considered in next month's City Council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Could I?
Let's get through the speakers first. Stephen Klein?
Stephen Klein, 301 Union Street. A little off topic. I just want to say that I 100% support, as a taxpayer, the budget-friendly option of recycled 60s era desks on cinder blocks.
Will you help us move them in?
Possibly. So I spoke with Ray earlier. I would also like to see this wait until after the DNR meeting. Mark had a chance to alleviate most of my concerns regarding the wetlands, but I still have some concerns about drainage and pollutants, chlorides, nitrates coming from the development. And I just want to ask that we make sure that we do our due diligence in reviewing these plans to make sure that we're not draining pollutants into these wetlands.
Thank you. Alder Morrow. I'm sorry, the speaker list is exhausted there. So, Alder Morrow, you had a comment or a question?
The question I have is, when is the DNR meeting?
And I was going to have Director Kivela speak to that.
Thank you.
First and foremost, Director, I don't know that we know when the meeting's scheduled, but if it's approved or denied tonight, the DNR still has jurisdiction. So even if hypothetically it's approved tonight, the DNR hearings result in a negative support, the DNR would squash that anyway. Is that correct? And come up here and you can say it on camera so they can hear you. And
yeah, so based on DNR review of the plat itself, if there was some, if their determination was that none of the wetlands could be impacted, so thus, if you need to impact wetlands, you can't do the project, then the project would be squashed, yes.
Okay. Do you know if the DNR has scheduled a hearing yet?
They have not scheduled a hearing yet. So in contact with the DNR, they said they were just reviewing the proper procedure for doing that public hearing, since it was requested fairly recently. And they will be doing that this week.
Okay. And just again, one more time for clarification, regardless of what this body decides, the DNR can still squash everything or give the go-ahead for everything?
DNR can always squash anything.
Okay, now let me ask you one more thing. Is there any, what are the downsides to postponing a month?
Downsides to postponing a month, it would really just be timeline of the Door to Dreams development. So I mean, they were looking to, they're working on their fundraising now. They've supplied donors with their start dates, et cetera. So it really would just be delaying that process.
Yeah, and as we know, any delays eventually amount to dollars. So does anybody have questions for Director Kivala?
I was going to ask your perception of the likelihood of us having answers from the DNR by our next full council meeting. So that being scheduled and getting a report or whatever they issue after such a community feedback session.
Yeah, so we would have it before the final plat comes forward. I'm blanking on the exact timeline. I believe they were hoping to bring that forward next month. From what I know, I mean, the DNR would be doing the review now. I know the cost came up. We don't have the exact cost. We came forward to the Finance Committee with a conservative cost, do not exceed amount. But until the DNR specialist dealing with wetlands and the credits calculates the ratio rate, that it's 1.2 or 1.5, rate, we won't have the full dollar amount. The price we came forward with to request was a top-of-the-line conservative estimate if they go all out and we get the max ratio. But
thank you. Alder Guthrie.
Thank you. My final question is, do you want to make an argument for us taking this up tonight in service to you having the flexibility and purpose to move things ahead for our partners and with others? Or do you want to advocate for delay? In this iterative process, I think so many community members both deeply care about retaining and not disturbing wetlands. We're watching historic flooding in the state, right? With providing housing to a sensitive group, right? And donors who are community members that are working so hard to raise that money. So I want to give you the tools that balance those things and help you move things ahead. So what would you ask of us this evening?
yeah, if this was a final plat, I would certainly side with the other individuals stating for the postponement. With this being a preliminary plat, I'm not as concerned as we do have time in there to make minor changes. I know the comment about Academy Ave extending past Meadow. So that was a small chunk that on the preliminary plat was labeled as right-of-way, but our intent is to never make that right-of-way, as that would disturb more wetlands. So we're just looking to have that be a driveway. City is looking to maintain ownership, as that could be a place to enter onto a trail in the future, if we ever were to go that route. And it's also a spot where we're looking to do mailboxes, not in any wetlands, but just on the CBUs, mailboxes.
So it's probably not a great time, but that recent change is very frustrating. Director, can you explain that so everybody understands it a little bit better on what we're now required to do?
Yeah, so CBUs are cluster box units. Cluster box units are now required for any new development of any substantial size. So if it's two houses going up, they'll do a regular rural route mailbox. But anything of subdivision size or multifamily size, they're going to require that cluster box unit, which is just a tower of mailboxes all in one location, which makes it easier for the mail carrier to deliver the mail to, more efficient for their staff amongst shortages.
Mail won't be delivered to their house. It will be delivered to a location near the house that they have to come and
Even
get.
though this is a neighborhood for people of special needs. Yeah.
Right? Right? Thank you. Alder Christensen, question?
No, just a comment. One of the things that really excites me about the project as a whole is it does give us the capability, the opportunity to keep 17 acres of wetlands. I think that's really one of the biggest positive portions of this. It is going to impact about 2% of the wetlands. So 98% of those wetlands are still going to be preserved. And I know there was a lot of time and effort made in the location of the buildings and the roads to try to minimize the amount of impact. I do think there is a broad amount of support for the project as a whole. And I do think, I mean, ideally, 0% would be perfection, but the fact that they're able to get it to 2 or 2.2% or something, they've, I think, done a good job of locating things in such a way where it's going to provide a valuable service, but it's also going to provide a wonderful area for people to enjoy and for wetlands to be preserved long-term, so.
And if I could just make a clarifying point too, so the wetland impact map, that is a conservative map showing what we possibly could disturb. Again, the intent is to not disturb them. If we don't have to, or if we can avoid it, let's not do that. Yep. So the comment, if you, I know I'd sent this out after one of the meetings to all the alders. You saw the color-coded map. It had the blue showing the distinguishing wetlands. But off of that Academy section, there were some small chunks that were potentially going to be impacted when you look at grading. So there could be, when they're grading, there could be some fill that falls into it. But in just talking with our Public Works team in the back room there, they said that it's quite possible that those don't get touched. If the grading can be worked out to not disturb those, that's what we're going to try to do. But per DNR regulations, if we might touch them, we have to include them. So,
thank you, Director.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Steinmetz. Discussion? Alder Lang? Or are you just thinking?
We've talked about like the proposing of this or postponing of this. What harm would it do?
As the director just said, it would create a delay potentially.
So just a delay.
A delay costs money, so there's a financial implication there. And again, ultimately, as the director said, the DNR has the final say. So if we say yes today, and in 3 weeks the DNR has their public hearing and says no, the answer is no.
So there's really no harm.
If we say yes, and then 3 weeks from now the DNR says yes, they can get started and advancing the project right away rather than having to wait for us to come back and reconsider
so there's
after
no harm
the DNR decision.
deciding now or later, so like this goes.
The harm with later is that it's time and money.
There we go.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think it's also important to note that this is just a preliminary plat.
Right.
We still won't be deciding on the final plat for another 4 weeks, which would come after the DNR report.
One other thing, this is not a for-profit thing either, and Doors Jeans has been doing a lot of fundraising, and they're doing everything they can to get as much money as they can. So when you say time is money, that's more money they have to raise. And again, this is not a for-profit apartment complex or housing complex. So every month that goes by is more money they have to raise because everything goes up in planning and so on. And again, as the mayor said, if the DNR says no, the answer is no.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission or council? Ray, you have final thoughts?
Mary.
Come on. You got to do it at the microphone. Gotcha. Sorry.
I want to clarify that from my discussions with the Chris Claysmith from the city planning group, that the timeline here for Doors to Dreams is that the only part of their project that they're going to want to do this year is the lodge. And the lodge building, for them to do the lodge is what's going to require the city to have its road built on Meadow and Academy so that they could access that lodge area. So the city is going to have to build its street on Academy and Meadow in order to be able to give access to that property. The only thing that Doors to Dreams is planning on for this year, with a start date towards the end of the summer, is the lodge area. The other housing, if I understood Chris correctly, is that is not part of their project to build this year. So when we talk about them needing to raise money, they do need to raise money, but they don't have the money to build those other housing units now anyway. So a postponement is not delaying what they're doing at all, I don't believe. And my intention is not to delay what they're doing. My intention is to postpone it in order to give the public a chance to hear and have meaningful input on what's being presented. Thank you.
Alderperson DeBonne. Sorry, I didn't see it.
Oh, that's all right. I have often wondered why DNR approval is the last thing developers get when there's any kind of wetland disturbance involved. It seems to me you'd want to get DNR approval before you start doing all the things that you have to do for development. I don't see that a postponement, time and money, gives them a little more time to raise more money. I don't think a month's postponement would be a big deal. I would like to hear what the DNR has to say. I've been concerned about the wetlands being disturbed from the beginning. It seems to me that we're getting into a develop at any cost mindset, and the environment be damned as a result. Seems like we're doing a lot of things backwards anyway, my opinion. I'll be a no vote.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, if you are in favor of the motion, you will vote yes. If you're opposed, you'll vote no, and the clerk will call that roll.
Christensen.
Aye.
Guthrie. Aye. Keemer.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Kneebone.
No.
Shuda.
Aye.
Lane.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
And Morrow.
No.
Okay, and we have Kneebone and Morrow voting no. I'm saying that so whoever's taking the minutes can add that to the minutes. All right, that is approved. Item number 15, I don't know if we can call it the main event, but it's one of those top, is a resolution, a request from Partnering Together of Portage County, Wisconsin, to rezone portions of a property located at 2854 Church Street from R2 single-family residence to B4 commercial district. And we have several people wishing to speak. We'll start with Cindy Royer.
Hi, I'm Cindy Royer, 3609 Lorraine Street. I'm here representing the board of One Big Tent. I'm the current president of the board. We are one of the pieces of the umbrellas of Partnering Together. And I thought I knew what I was going to say till I sat through the meeting. And I want to relate what's happening to what's happening with the city. We spent an hour hearing the planning of our new city building, which looks amazing. But know that Partnering Together and all of its partners have spent more than a year working on finding the building, finding the right location, doing the planning that's needed for this. None of this has been a quick process for us. We just heard about Door to Dreams. Amazing, another nonprofit in our community. We have such a great community of nonprofits. And how important what they're doing is in their planning. That's a vulnerable population. What we're trying to protect is another vulnerable population in our community. So I would encourage you to vote yes to both Resolution 15 and 16 so we can continue to protect our neighbors and give them dignity. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Kathy Lane Brown.
Hello, I'm Kathy Lane Brown. I live at 1956 Plover Street. I'm here to represent myself, but also a group called ESP, which is Eradicating Systemic Poverty. And my comments, my feeling is the same as what you just said in terms of how long we went through for an hour and a half on doing the courthouse, and that these people that have been planning this have been working for a long, long time. They've looked at lots of properties. This one fits very well in that it's on a bus line, it's near grocery stores, it's near pharmacy, it's not far to walk to get downtown. It's a year-round facility. It has more beds than what is available now, and you got to have it. You need something somewhere, and this is the best fit in Point. So I recommend that you vote yes on this, please.
Thank you. And that exhausts the speaker list for item number 15. Council? Thoughts, comments? Alder DeBone.
I'll move to approve the rezone from R2 to B4.
Okay, Alder Boozy. Oh, okay, I saw your hand up. I didn't know if you wanted to.
I'd like to second, please.
Oh, okay, for it.
We'll give the second to Boozy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Discussion? Comments from the audience or online? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Clerk, please call that roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Lane.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Kiemer.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
And Christensen.
Aye.
And by unanimous consent, that passes. Item number 16 is a resolution, a request from Partnering Together of Portage County for a conditional use permit to operate a temporary housing facility at the property located at 2854 Church Street with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.02 Sub 1 Sub F Sub 3 Sub F. We have a few people wishing to speak there. To Tim Boudelaire.
Tim Boudelaire, 1109 Lindbergh Avenue. I am in support of this resolution. As we've heard, this is an incredible effort by several organizations in our community which are coming together to help this population. I think it does it in a way that respects and honors these individuals and connects them with much-needed services in our community. In addition, I think it will provide opportunities for concerned citizens to volunteer their time and resources to help support this effort as well. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And Cindy Royer, you signed up to speak with this one as well.
Oh, I'm good.
You're good? All right, thank you. That list is exhausted now as well. Council, Alder Guthrie?
I'd like to move approval, but with amendments to what was passed in Plan Commission and was agenda'd. I'll provide you with two, Mr. Mayor. Number one is striking item 5 in the agenda, which cites a need to vacate the premises within 30 minutes of closure. Seeing the operational plan of the collective of nonprofits, they've got some professional staff that they plan to hire who are social workers and plan to host meetings. I don't want to micromanage when they can operate some of those interfaces. They are trained professionals, and I trust them to operate this space without such tight oversight in that particular regard. The other is number 6. As stated, it would expire, the conditional use permit, 12 months from today. They do not plan to be in operation until deep into the fall, which would leave them only open about 6 or 7 months until their conditional use permit is up for renewal. I would like to revise that to 18 months, which honors the spirit of the 1 year, because I think it will actually end up being approximately 1 year of conditional use from opening day until it is re-reviewed. I submit that for your consideration.
Let me see if I can rephrase that. You are striking item number 5 as a condition. That item number 5 says guests of the temporary housing facility are not allowed on the subject property 30 minutes after the facility closes each day. You want that stricken, correct?
Stricken completely.
Gotcha. And item number number 6, you want to amend that line to say the conditional use permit shall expire 18 months after the adoption by common council, et cetera, et cetera. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so discussion would, first of all, I need a second on that.
I'll second.
Seconded by Kiemer. Let's give it to Broderick.
Let's give it to Broderick.
All right, so discussion only on those 2 amendments. Is there any discussion there?
Thank you to Alder Guthrie for bringing forth those amendments. I wholeheartedly agree and was planning to introduce the same thing myself if it didn't come up, so thank you.
Okay, Alder Steinmetz, you had a question?
I was just going to second. I liked Guthrie, not second.
You can third.
Broderick.
We'll give you the third.
I agree with what Alder Guthrie said. I think that making the amendment to item number 6 makes a lot of sense. That wasn't something on my radar. And I agree that getting rid of item number 5 makes a lot of sense too. We're trusting these people to use their best judgment, and micromanaging doesn't seem like it would be a good fit in that aspect.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I'm going to assume, since none of the staff in the overflow room has stepped forward to say anything objecting to this, that staff is okay with that. So we'll go with that. Any comments from the audience on the amendments only? Okay.
Jane Johnson, 615 Summer Street. Yes, please.
I just want to make a comment. That's probably the shortest comment that Mother Jane has ever made. Ever.
He's saying that because she's had to stand on her tiptoes to get to the That was bad. All right. We're going to go ahead.
Just to clarify, my understanding is staff will have their own operation plan for how they will run this shelter. So should they choose to create rules like this or similar or different, they have
It's just
the
not a
ability
requirement
to
of the
do so.
conditional use.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes.
I'm in support. I don't think this goes far enough, sadly. A community is known by how it treats the least of its residents. I would like this to be a place where people could actually have a room and a door they could lock. It's a good solution, but it doesn't go nearly far enough to address the need. But it's a start, as they say. It's a start, and we can't go from here to there right away. But hopefully we'll get there at some point. I know a lot of homeless people are fellow veterans. My heart breaks for them. So it's something we have to do.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Only on the amendment, I'm going to take a voice vote. All those in favor of the amendments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, sorry, that wasn't a vote. That was just muscle memory.
Okay.
Any opposed? By unanimous voice vote, the amendments are passed, and now we are voting on the original resolution as amended. Need a motion for that.
Move approval.
Moved by Boozy.
Second.
Seconded by Burr. Discussion there.
The city's stake in this and our financial contribution to the multi-million-dollar budget that is being worked on right now is so small. So kudos to the members of our community sitting in the back who have been doing the heavy lifting. Excuse me.
Thank you. All right, any comments from the audience? Additional. Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Christensen.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Nebel.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
And Morrow.
Aye.
And that is approved. Item number 17 is an ordinance amendment in Chapter 9.19 to create an additional small section of ATV, UTV routes. And Andrea Olson. I knew we had someone.
So I'm for this. However, I had a bigger question that I wanted to address at the prior meeting. We're having these trickle in right now with the ATV, UTV routes. I think it might be wise to have a larger meeting and staff looking at the city as a big picture and making the decision, okay, these areas we should approve, these areas, like on 2nd Street, we really don't want people downtown driving them like I've seen, just to get a big picture, not have stuff trickle in and be done and over with it, because some of the people that I've talked to, they have stated that this is very, very good for them for tourism, and whether or not I like ATVs or not doesn't really matter, but this is something that is good for their businesses, so we should save some time and money by let's just get this done and look at it once and for all.
Thank you. And that is a tremendous idea. We did that 2 years ago. Staff looked at all of the ATV, UTV routes that were possible and proposed, bringing them into the city only to get fuel and or the nearest convenience store. And it was abruptly shut down by the council, so we started the piecemeal process. But I think we're ready, and we've proved the theory. So maybe it is time to start looking at bringing those routes back for council consideration again. Regardless, that was the only speaker.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, seconded by Lang. Discussion?
I think transportation is like housing, where having options is good, and ATV, UTVs are generally a sustainable option. So I'm for it.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
I'd just like to see in the future, because as we do our zoning, and I'd like to see golf carts to be able to be included as an electrical option. Maybe it's not a golf cart, but it's something that we don't have right now.
There is something called low-speed vehicle. It's actually a designation by the Department of Transportation, and I know that there's at least one in the area, because one of our officers encountered it. I was going to say ran into it, but that sounded really bad. And we had to do the research to find out that, yep, it's a legally road licensed low-speed vehicle, very similar to a golf cart, no place to strap your bags in.
Oh, okay. Something similar to that, yeah.
All of those are options. All right, any other comments? Hearing none. Clerk, please call that roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Kneebone.
No.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Kiemer.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
And Christensen.
Aye.
And with Alderperson Kneebone voting no, the majority has it, and that is approved. Where are we at now? Item number 18. Before we go to 18, you probably noticed there was something slightly different in your packet than what was discussed last week. President Christensen and I, along with Director Badoon, got together to figure out what we were really hoping for and what we could compromise on. So what you see before you is that proposal, which is slightly different, relaxing the 2-foot request that was approved at committee. And what you see here, the key points are no part of the planting shall exceed 36 inches during peak flowering height. That is as what was requested. However, within 3 feet of an intersection of roadway, driveway, or alley, that maximum height is reduced to 24 inches for safety and vision. And then anything within 3 feet of a fire hydrant has a maximum height of 12 inches. So does that make sense to everybody? It took us a while to like draw it out, but anything that's within, everything will be 3 feet, with the exception of anything that's within a driveway, 3 feet of a driveway, or a crosswalk or an alley. That will have a maximum height of 2 feet or 24 inches. And then the fire hydrant was the same, that anything within 12 inches of a fire hydrant, within a 3-foot radius of a fire hydrant will be 12 inches. And that's at the request, of course, of the fire department. So that is what we're actually proposing tonight. And with that, we have several people wishing to speak. So we will start with Trevor Rourke.
Did he leave?
I think he left.
Did he?
High percentage.
Trevor Orr going once.
Yes, road routes.
Sometimes he likes to be last, so.
And sometimes he's online.
Sometimes he is online. He was standing right back, or sitting right back there. We're gonna put this off to the side and get through everybody else first. Andrea Olson.
I am very against this change to the program. One of the big things is that we started the Long Gone Native program back in 2023. There was public outreach. You can go online, you can watch that video too. It had the Portage County Land and Conservation was there, Wild Ones, UWSP, and community development were all there. They all created this program together. So we've had we've had a program going on. The problem that occurred was that a couple months ago, Public Works, I don't think, was fully aware that there was already an ordinance in place. So suddenly, a new ordinance was proposed because they didn't realize that there was one already in place. And one of the problems was sunflowers in front of stop signs. So instead of addressing sunflowers in front of stop signs by saying, no plants shall obstruct the view of city signs, we're getting this. When we're saying, okay, well, we're going to just put the new regulations at 2 feet, maybe 3 feet now. We have established gardens already that had to go to the city, go through the process of being approved. We have already also gone and taken so much time doing this that now we're being told too that we won't be grandfathered in. What's the legality there? Because this was already an established program, and now all these people are probably going to have to tear out their gardens. Another thing is that UWSP was doing research, I found out today, on the native planting sites, and they need at least 4 years to be able to have the data that they were looking for. So now you are disrupting research that was already ongoing during the city, or in the city. What's the city going to do about their own issues that they have? Are we going to tell residents they can't plant near the streets, but then we can have hardscape like garbage cans, benches, bushes aren't hardscapes, but all those things. What about snowbanks? Snowbanks are above 3 feet all the time during the winter, but flowers that move and sway, they're blocking things, but the snowbanks aren't, and they're fine to keep there. So I think that the things that would have been better would have been relooking at what Madison has, what Eau Claire has, what Middleton has, and all of these, we aren't even, the fire safety. The state statute actually for plants around a fire hydrant is 24 inches. We're going below that even. So I think that we should have instead still have approval phase. That's our ordinance. That's what's there already. Signage. No plant shall obstruct the view of city signs. Easy enough to enforce then. No hardscapes, no boulders, raised planters, or solid decorative items in the right-of-way. Driveway safety, plants within 20 feet vision triangle or 5 feet of a driveway must not exceed 30 inches. Fire safety, plants within 3 feet of a hydrant must not exceed 24 inches. That's the state statute. Sightliness, tree branches and vision triangles should be pruned to a minimum of 10 feet. We actually have 8 feet right now, but with stop signs, you might want to get it a little bit higher. Ecological freedom. Outside of these specified safety zones, there is no height limit for plants. Allow our native ecosystem to actually grow. No weeds. Zero tolerance for noxious weeds as defined by the Wisconsin State Legislature and DNR. This is changing a program that maybe some people didn't already realize was established, but we spent a lot of time, staff spent a lot of time working on this program. And I really wish that leadership had involved all the parties at once to revise this and not just have it a couple entities revising it.
Thank you. Elizabeth Trebetuski.
Elizabeth Trebatowski, 3262 Sunflower Road. I agree with what Andrea just said, and also, especially considering the flooding that's happening in the state right now. There are plants like the cup plant, which grows taller than I am, but the roots go up to 12 feet below the ground, which stabilizes soil and prevents a lot of the erosion that we're seeing in the state. Like, these are not only beautiful and helping with the natural landscape around the town, but it actually can help with erosion and with some of the problems we're having with climate change. So I agree with what Andrea said.
Thank you. We have Kathy Lane Brown. She was here.
Is that one of the comments we have up on the board?
No. Trevor Rourke. Kathy Lane Brown. Last call. All right. We're going to move those off to the side. And we have Mary McCone. Mary?
Did you unmute her?
They unmute themselves.
Okay. Can you hear me?
There we go. Now we got you.
Okay, great. I'd like to speak in favor of the original recommendation that the upper limit for such boulevard plantings is 48 inches. I'm wondering what is the problem with plantings that might go up to 48 inches? Has there been significant issues or problems or accidents connected with native boulevard plantings going up to 48 inches? I think it possibly, but doubtful. Native plants up to this height don't exhibit a solid wall that restricts vision. They tend to have an airy, see-through texture. Stevens Point includes the Lawns Gone Native guidelines on its website, and approved native plantings outside of the vision triangle aren't restricted in terms of height. And most of the recommended Lawns Gone Native species for the kind of conditions that exist on boulevards, mostly hot, dry soils, grow at least 2 feet high, if not 4 and sometimes 5 feet high. As Andrea said, I'm wondering if people who've already got plantings reaching up to 48 inches high are going to be expected to pull those out or remove those. In the recent Public Works meeting, Director Badoun proposed a height limit of 48 inches, and this was based on Mark Cordes' fact-finding. I trust their work. What I don't trust is the opinions of committee members who sort of off the cuff just thought this might be too high. I don't know what they based their anxieties on. And Director Badoun also made clear that if 48 inches caused problems, the maximum height could be lowered. Again, I wonder what the possible significant problems are with a 48-inch height. I trust the fact-finding that the city did and the resulting 48-inch height limit recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Bryant?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I also am curious to know a little bit about the background on selecting those height limits. I feel that the height limits of 2 and I guess I'm hearing 3 feet now are problematic in that they would potentially limit the species that could be planted. If you look at the potential prairie plantings that are recommended in publications such as UW Extension, if you look at the size of these grasses and forbs, you're going to limit the potential species you could potentially plant. So for example, if you set a 2-foot limit max height, you're only going to get about 1 of the 8 grasses that they recommend, about 10 of the 45 forbs. If you set a 3-foot max, you're only going to be able to plant about 3 of the 8 grasses recommended in publication. and about 20 of the 45 forbs and shrubs. So these limitations are problematic in that they would limit the diversity of the plants. And in addition to that, the Stevens Point has some pretty problematic dry, sandy soils. So you're limited in the species that you can start off with. So I'd be a little worried about providing further limitations. I guess some other things I would say, in addition to the limiting of the species, ecosystem functions of these prairies are really limited to plant size, or they're linked to plant size. And things like birds and butterflies, I suspect a lot of folks are familiar with the aspects that the prairies are providing, but they're also providing a lot of below ground improvements such as water infiltration, and some of the research that we've been doing at UWSP is quantifying the carbon storage in the soils, and we find that's directly linked to the plant size, and that's above ground and below ground. So I guess my comment is I'm curious to know why the 3-foot height was selected. I'd encourage you all to consider maybe that 4-foot would be a little bit better to allow people to plant a wider variety of species and capture more of the ecosystem benefits I think that some of these plantings are intended to provide.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Okay.
Someone else.
Out here? Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Nathan Sandwick, 633 Portage Street. Incidentally, as luck would have it, a lot of perennials really took off last year in my yard. A lot of it was like a few years in the making before I really saw, whoa, those can get pretty tall. Most of the comments that I got, I'm just sharing some experience, on this topic. Most of the comments that I got, just when I was out in the front yard and people were walking by, were all positive, actually. Kind of to my surprise, because it was like alarmingly tall, some of it stuff right in the boulevard, especially. Like it was so tall, I had to kind of tie some of it together so that it at least wasn't drooping into the sidewalk. Because like I myself, if I'm walking by and I have to duck, I'm like, well, I wouldn't want to have to duck every time. So anyway, long story short, a lot of people said that they liked it. I'm sure a lot of people didn't like it and didn't say anything because that's the Wisconsin nice. And that's why I know the city did a survey on this topic too. And they probably got some, more candid perspectives that way. And I appreciate sort of all perspectives on that. For myself, I actually kind of, before this even came up, before I knew that there was going to be regulation about it, just kind of decided I think maybe a better spot for some of that stuff would be in the back rather than right along the street. That said, I'm not in favor of regulating it. I'm not in favor of, I think a lot of us can be kind of reasonable about it. A lot of us don't know what we're going to get until we see it, and a lot of us won't know what we like until we see it. And I think for us to all have kind of some room to play with some of the wild species that do a lot for our environment and for the bees, I noticed the pollinators a lot this year. Like, you could see, like when you put some bee balm out there, you can see they're doing great, and it's just nice to see them thriving. And so I think the more we leave the door open for people to experiment, the more we're going to like what we see in general. And to the extent that it is a problem, regulate when it's a problem. A lot of us will probably just be reasonable when we notice that it's a problem. So that's where I stand.
Thank you. Any other comments? We've got a whole department for unreasonable.
Can you ask Brett what his background is?
No, but thank you.
Can I have...
Well, I want to make a couple of comments here before we open it up to the council. A couple of things. Every speaker has focused on native plantings. This ordinance is not exclusive to native plantings. I can plant sweet corn in my apron or the boulevard. They talk about the height. Mark and I talked about this at length. In regards to the safety issue, the council has made it a priority for pedestrian and bicycle safety. Business 51 is a perfect example of that. We have prioritized that. Going under that, I took a measurement in a Ford Escape with a person driving, sitting at the normal height of the steering wheel, being able to see over the dash. I did put a 4-year-old in there. And they were able to just barely see over 3 feet. Now, you had a curb of at least 6 inches, and a 3-foot plant blocks their vision. Coming out of the driveway, pulling into the driveway, pulling up at a corner. It becomes a safety issue, and that's what it is. It's not about the pollinators or having a couple of plants here and there that you can see through, but this doesn't restrict it to that. This doesn't even outline specifically native species. And the really important thing is this doesn't do anything for your yard. If you want native species, if you want those pollinators, you can do that in your yard already. That 3-foot swath of grass that's there for public safety and to pile snow. And by the way, if we have 5-foot snowbanks in a boulevard, we're not doing our job. We had heavy snows this winter, and I don't know any place that was 5 foot in the boulevard. But 5 feet?
Yeah. Mine got close.
Yeah.
5 feet?
Higher than me, and I'm 5'10".
Really?
Yes.
I didn't see any of that in my area, so.
But I get 2 turning lanes. I have a turning lane.
Stand corrected. We can't always get to everything, but yeah, 5 feet, that's dangerous too.
Yeah, I was going to say.
All right, I'll concede on that one. I didn't see them. But yeah, anything you want to do in your yard, plant away, go nuts. But in the interest of public safety, that's why there is the right-of-way. And anything that is in there, as everyone knows, can be removed if we need to do any work anyway. I think it's a reasonable start to a compromise in talking with staff. 3 feet, let's go with it, as long as the driveways and alleys and corners are clear, a little bit lower so people can see over it. And not just focus on the native species. This isn't a plot to kill off native species. This ordinance refers to any plantings, shrubberies. Shrubberies. I saw Monty Python. So that's my 2 cents, President Christensen. Anything you wanted to add before we move on to everybody else?
I know I was at the meeting when it was the 4 foot was presented, and then it went down to 2. We have plants in ours, and most of them would have been over the 2 foot. 4 foot concerned me a little. I have a 4'8" mother-in-law. Okay, and when
I was going to bring it up.
I know, and when she drives her car, I mean a 4 foot planting. If there was, she would not be able to see over it. And I think the other important thing to remember too is none of the things that we're creating are written in stone. I probably would have voted. I probably wouldn't have gone against the 4 foot. That being said, I also kind of like the idea of incremental change, and I thought 2 foot was too much of a swing the other way. I kind of thought the 3 foot was the kind of the middle of the road compromise, and we can try that. And once we see how things are working with the 3 foot, and if it seems like adding that additional foot wouldn't be problematic, we can do that. I also do think it is important to note that on their property and within their lawn, they can grow those things too. But there are safety issues right next to a roadway, and I think I'm comfortable. 2 foot I would have voted against. I'm okay with the 3 for a first attempt.
Thank you. Go to Morrow, then Lang, then Guthrie. That was the order the hands came up.
The mayor already hit everything I was going to say, so go on.
All right, Alder Lang?
I think we've talked about some of the very key points about why this thing kind of needs to happen. The safety issue. One of the things that I look at, I would like to see amended is, I think it's too close to the intersection still. That 3 feet, I think moving it back maybe a foot, maybe 2 feet would be better. Maybe moving it from 3 feet to like 4 or 5. I feel like if you're trying to open up the visions, that's where I'm like, bring that thing down to 2 feet again. I do think the 3 feet's still a little short, looking through my, like, plantings and flowers and stuff that gives us, like, I'd probably feel better at like a 40, just saying, like.
Inches.
40 inches. Not 40 feet, but just like 40 inches, because like, you get a lot of things that are just over that 3 feet that are up there. I don't know if we're taking too many options off the table with 36, and people having to rip out some things that are already in there that maybe they work. And so like, I'm with you guys on like incrementally. I just don't know if 36 is too short, if 48 was going to be okay, if 48 inches was going to be okay, maybe down to 42, 40. See if we're having problems, okay, we can bring it down again. But yeah, I still think like 3 feet's too close to intersections, and that just all feels to me.
Just a point of clarification.
If it's okay with Alder Guthrie, because she.
Well, no, just a point of clarification.
Okay.
I thought there was within the zoning code. I thought that zone that.
So the vision triangle applies to corners.
Right.
Yeah.
So at intersections, that would still be in effect, and I think that's.
Yes, for intersections, that would still be in effect.
So it's more restrictive than what we have, because we included intersections in this one, and I'm not sure. I think we should have maybe kept intersections out.
So I should probably get Jared in here. I believe the vision triangle is 20 feet.
Right. It is.
This is less restrictive at 3.
That's what I'm saying. So they couldn't have it if it's 20 feet within the zoning. I mean,
I get what you're
their
saying.
vision triangle's 20 feet from the intersection. I'm wondering if we shouldn't make it consistent with that.
Okay.
Because we have two different codes that both will come into play.
So then you would suggest, similar to what Alder Lang had said, that
if it's 20 as it stands, I guess, then make it what we have
I think
already.
from intersections, I prefer to see it be 20. I see that anytime you have motorized.
Okay.
I don't. Just a thought.
All right. So, Alder Guthrie, I'll let you go ahead. But
I have a question for Director Badoon. So while he makes his way in here, perhaps you can continue this conversation.
Sure. And what I'm thinking of is, if that was something that we wanted to do and incorporate the vision triangle that's already existing and tie in with that, which would be more restrictive than this, maybe we're not ready to vote on this yet.
Director Badoon.
Hi, Director Badoon. Thanks for joining us in the flesh. I have my doubts about how the ordinance is written in draft this evening, and I'm not supportive of some of the details, but perhaps there are urgent safety matters that concern you, and you'd like to advocate for this being passed right away for a safety reason.
I think we can get the whole thing together, and then we can upset people just in one night and not maybe over several nights. That's what it comes down to. I'd rather just get the whole thing right, because I don't want to start piecemealing and stuff, and then we come back and we debate it and we think, okay, now we're thinking it differently, at least how it's structured, later. So I think what we have is probably something we can still work with. But yes, if we want to keep going, I'd say let's just keep refining what we have until we're happy with it. Things are just greening up now, so hopefully we can still respond to things.
So if we don't pass this tonight, or then the people who have perennials popping up, like folks are referring to shrubberies. Are there shrubberies on corners that are, contributing to harm in our community that you urgently need us to attend to through a vote this evening?
Not that I can think of within the right of way. There are some, though, that are out there within the vision triangles we deal with on a regular basis, yes.
But we already have rules on the books for that.
Yes, and there are some areas where I see people have not maintained their gardens, and there are, trees growing up. It does not take many years for a Siberian elm to grow from seedling to, and there are a few of those out there for people that just haven't maintained what they have, in the boulevard, but nothing that we can't deal with in the next, few weeks, to the next meeting or even the meeting thereafter, we'll figure it out. I mean, our intent is to immediately, once this is passed, to go around with our tape measures and start.
Nothing's up yet, Scott. You
So,
can't.
it's like we're not waiting.
Tape measures.
We're trying to decide whether we want to use an engineering tape measure or a carpenter tape measure, because we don't know if we want to go in inches or tenths of feet. And
Have you talked about the metrics?
we could put everything, yes, in the metric system.
I think Alder-elect Olson makes an excellent point that for 6 months of the year, we deal with piles of solid ice and snow and somehow manage to back out of our driveways. Recently, it was taller than my partner's Tundra, and we still found a way to escape without murdering anyone. So I think that this community wants some flexibility and the capacity to live their values through planting of native plants, and as long as it is not an urgent matter of concern for human safety, I will be either a no on this or a supporter of it going back for revisions to consider some of the items that have been surfaced. I yield.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody? Alder Kiemer.
I'm also in support of raising it above 36 inches. I was fine with the 48 inches. Some of my issues with having it, I know 36 may seem high to some people, but I mean, I've got a neighbor who just has plantings. There's nothing prairie or natural or native about it. And I just think as much as we don't have a lot of these plantings in parkways and boulevards, there would be a lot of enforcement for our Commissioner, Mark Cordes, if it was at 2 or 3 feet. And I just think that would become counter-effective. It would become difficult to enforce, and then it would not be enforced or would be enforced very irregularly. So I get the safety concerns and the vision, but again, yes, I have a daughter who's about 4 feet tall, and the snow is taller than her for many winters over the past 10 years. So again, I'm in favor of the spirit of this, but I think it could be more permissive and more flexible, and I'm in support of it being higher than 36. But I'm also willing to see it come back. And have staff have time to maybe point in instead of us picking it apart and scratching out things here and there and just messing it up.
At 10:20 at night.
Yes.
Nice read. All right, we're going to go to Steinmetz and then Kneebone. And were you just flipping me off, or did you have a comment? Did you have a comment? Oh, shoot, I'm sorry.
I might.
All right.
Just right. Give them a little time.
I was surprised by the amount of context I got on this topic. I am very pro-pollinator, pro-biodiversity. Ultimately, I do prioritize human safety and public safety. So when it was raised that maybe if the total viewing obstruction is 54 inches, you can very easily lose a kid or a recumbent bicycle behind that. In practicality, I'm sure that you can see through these things. It's not like you're having 4.5 feet of plywood at the end of your road or driveway.
No, we talk about woody plants in the swale area.
So I would be amenable to passing it as is or letting the Alder-elects take it.
Okay. Alder Kneebone.
Excuse me, the comment was made that it really isn't about the pollinators. Maybe it should be, because we're losing bees, we're losing butterflies, we're losing birds. When things go extinct, the whole biosystem suffers. Some of the best plants for pollinators, average height's about 48 inches. So if somebody wants to plant their values and put coneflowers and goldenrods and some milkweed there to provide food for even hummingbirds come to these plants, I don't think 48 inches is too tall. I think if there's an issue it could be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. If somebody's planted so much that you can't see, well, then let Mark Cordes go out, talk to him, see what could be thinned out. If people have parked their cars down the street, when you're backing out of a driveway, you've got to look around a row of parked cars. They're taller than the plants would be. So I would be a no on the way this is right now. I think it should be at least 36 inches. But I'd like to see it go back and be more coordinated with what else we've got in ordinances, like the native lawns and what's currently in the vision triangle language now.
And I think
So-
some of that makes sense with
Yeah.
going back.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, Mary, though, but those cars, that's exactly the reason why it's illegal to park within 4 feet of a driveway. So you don't obstruct that vision.
Well-
And that's enforced heavily because I got complaints about people getting tickets.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen
in
5-foot
my
snowbanks either.
neighborhood,
But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Actually, we don't have curb and gutter yet, so I wouldn't plant anything in the swales because that's where everybody parks right now.
And some of this is swales. But that's the point. You know, people are, again, focusing on native species. Well, that's fine, but you've got a whole yard to do that in. This ordinance doesn't preclude you from planting bushes
And I
or
would-
sweet corn
And-
or anything else.
And if you've got a garden in your backyard, you really would appreciate pollinators coming around to make sure that you're going to actually
Fair
have
enough.
vegetables after the blossoms. So,
Fair enough.
Anyway, yeah.
Do you have pollinator gardens in your yard?
I have all kinds of milkweed
Milkweed?
and things, but they're all in a,
But not towards the road.
not yet because people park in them. We don't, if we had a curb and gutter and a boulevard, yeah, I would. But right now, my across the street new neighbors have 6 cars.
Yeah?
And 2 of them are alternating.
Well, parking's another discussion. We were supposed to have a special meeting tomorrow, but that got canceled.
Yeah, so anyway, it's,
I mean, people with short cars. I mean, that's the thing, and the one I measured was a Ford Escape. I don't think that's an unreasonably small car, but it's not a large truck either. I can see over a lot of stuff.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can we call the question?
Please, God.
Please, God?
Yes.
We're getting religious now? Alder Schuda, do you have anything
We're
left to
coming
say?
up on no mow May, I believe. And then once that's over, my grass, how tall can I leave my grass?
So that was something I was going to bring up too. We don't send people out with tape measures. Generally, I think it's 8 inches as the maximum. But again, we're not out there measuring, oh, this blade's 8, this one's only 7.5. It's a ballpark, so we're not going to go out there and stop you at 36. If it's 38 or 40, you're probably going to get away with it. Does that answer your question? There is no specific amount. I don't think we have an actual number in there.
If you have a jungle, yes.
Yeah, it says 8 inches in the ordinance.
Yeah.
I usually don't look at it, so that was a good guess. All right,
I make a motion to send this back to staff and for a little more fine tuning.
thank you. And part of that should be incorporating the standard of the vision triangles and the safety measures and directives that the
And
council
signage,
provided.
blocking signage being a priority.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
if anyone
that's a
has
good one.
any comments, they could share them with Director Badoon and.
He's got nothing else going
Okay.
on.
I would love
Yeah, there's nothing going on.
We need a second, for God's sake.
Second.
The motion is to send it back, because clearly, we need some more work.
Yeah.
So I am not, I think we're just going to go with it, and all those in favor, we don't have to do a roll call, do we? It's send it back. Let me do this.
Rather do it.
Let me do this. I'm going to do a voice vote. All those in favor of sending it back to staff to bring it back at a later date signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Then you can do all yeses. By unanimous consent, it's going back to you. All right. Hey, we're 2/3 of the way done. Scott, don't go away. Item number 19 is an ordinance amendment regarding collection of garbage and recyclables to comply with recent revisions to state rules.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion?
None.
Who was first?
I'm sorry, I think it was
Burr.
Burr and then Keemer.
Okay.
Comments from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, although, nope, roll call.
Morrow.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Nebone.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Wow. Director, the next 4 are yours, so just stick around. Item number 20 is to award the 2026 Streets Improvements Michigan Underpass Project 26101 to Switlick Sons for an amount not to exceed $2,647,627.18.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I think that was Burr and Keemer. Discussion?
We talked about this.
Yep.
Comments from the audience?
Great job.
So excited.
Seeing and hearing no additional comments, clerk, please call the roll.
Christensen.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Nebone.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
And Morrow.
Aye.
And that's approved. Item number 21 is to award the 2026 resurfacing Hoover Road Project 26-103 to American Asphalt of Wisconsin in an amount not to exceed $792,706.50.
So moved.
Motion by Morrow.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who was that, Keemer? Keemer seconds.
I'll give you one.
I'll get you. Keep going. All right. Discussion?
We talked about this in,
Comments from anyone?
we talked about this in Public Works.
Yeah, we did.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Nebone.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
And Christensen.
Aye.
And that's approved. Item number 22, to award the 2026 Pavement Maintenance Project 26-104 to Fahrner Asphalt Sealers, Inc., for the amount not to exceed $169,030.01.
So moved.
Second.
Who was that, Lang? Lang second, or motion? Christensen seconded. Trying to, my head, I'm going to snap my neck here at some point. Discussion by anyone? Hearing and seeing none, clerk, please call that roll.
Christensen.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Nebone.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
And Morrow.
Aye.
And that's approved. Item number 23 is to award the construction-related services for the north segment of Business 51 project to MSA for $1,007,319. We have Andrea Olson.
Never mind.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Steinmetz?
I'll second.
Seconded by Keemer again? Okay. Discussion by anyone? Hearing and seeing none, clerk, please call that roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Nebone.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
And Christensen.
Aye.
And that's approved. Item number 24 is the approval of amendments to the fee schedule for the Community Development Department. Andrea?
Okay, I appreciate all the study, or, no, it's closer. That's nice. I appreciate all the studies and everything that, and all the time that staff put in on this. And I actually called around to Marshfield, Weston, Wausau, and Plover when I was doing some research on this, because I was wondering why we were change our fees so much. And also, I was wondering why we weren't using this as a justification to switch over to electronic permitting system, because when you're looking at this, it says that you have initial entry is 60 minutes, costing $39.01. Processing is 30 minutes, another $19.51. So everything is broken out perfectly right now to justify electronic permitting. And Marshfield, Wausau, and Weston all use Evolve, and Plover use InspectWiz. And with those, at least with InspectWiz, there's no IT involvement needed. Everything's on the cloud, so it would make it much less work for our IT department too. And in the 2025 Housing Affordability Report, which we don't have yet, it comes out for us in December of 2026, but many other cities actually put their 2025 study out in January of 2026 because they use that study throughout the year for grants. They get grants approved based on that study too, but we can't because we don't have it ready for a full year. How useful is it going to be the following year? And with that Act 243, one of the things is that municipalities are supposed to reduce the time of permitting and also reduce the fees by 20%. So I think that if we can reduce the time of permitting because it's all being done online and also reduce the fees associated with it because suddenly we're doing permitting online, that's good enough justification to switch over. And I think this study that they just did is a justification there. And I know for a fact our city has been talking about doing this now for at least 5 years. Ryan was trying to get it passed, it fell to the wayside, and we still aren't doing anything with it. And this is an opportunity to use our research that we did.
Thank you. Alder Guthrie.
Move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Dang it.
Give it a Steinmetz.
Steinmetz? Sure. All right. I heard it over here. I wasn't sure if it was you. All right. We have a second. Alder Guthrie.
Thank you. I want to once again commend the staff who worked on this. It was at my begging as I rolled on. I saw that our fees for everything from a place to store your personal airplane to permitting fees were just out of alignment with the cost of doing business. So I'm really grateful that they dug deep and not only set new fees, but created an accelerator to rise with inflation, presumably, so that we don't have to take a deep look until every 5 or 10 years. But I agree with Alder-elect Olson that this can be a step in an iterative process of electrifying and considering contracts for doing that and other broad approvals. This was a huge lift, and so I want to celebrate that lift. I'm excited to hopefully pass it this evening, and when the director is ready to share those other visions for efficiencies and steps in to further that, I look forward to it and will welcome it at that time. I'm not going to vote to hold this up in service to some of those conversations.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Christensen.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Shuda.
Aye.
Lang.
Oh, bingo. I didn't even see that. Continue on, and we'll try and get him when he returns.
Boozy.
It's been a long meeting, I understand it.
And Morrow.
Aye.
Let's just mark Lang excused for that vote, and by majority consent, it passes. Item number 25 is a recommended disallowance of a claim for Brittney Thiel-Flooding due to construction activities.
Motion to deny the claim.
Thank you. Seconded by Boozy. Discussion by anyone? I don't see anyone who looks like
Already
an
talked
applicant
about
here.
this at length.
Clerk, please call that roll.
Morrow.
Aye.
Boozy.
Aye.
Lang is excused.
Excused.
Shuda.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Steinmetz.
Aye.
Burr.
Aye.
Broderick.
Aye.
Keemer.
Aye.
Guthrie.
Aye.
And Christensen.
Aye.
And that is approved. I gotta get up. These are honestly one of the sadder things that we have to do almost each year. Public service, as everyone in this room knows, is not for the faint of heart. It really takes courage to not just step up and run, but to immerse yourself, subject yourself to all sorts of criticisms, online, in person, wherever it happens to be, and persevere with doing what you believe is best for the community. That says something about a person's character. And we have 3 alderpersons, which is the largest new group that we've had since, I think, 2015. In 2015, I think we had 5. And Mary was in 2015. So with that, we want to recognize the service of those alderpersons, and we went by district order numerically. So Alderperson Broderick, if you join me up here, please.
Oh, the back room comes in.
It's a respect thing. Laura Broderick, in recognition of your dedicated public service as alderperson on the Stevens Point Common Council, the people of the city of Stevens Point extend their profound appreciation and sincere gratitude to you, October 2023 through April 2026.
In respect to the fact that we've been here for almost 4 hours, I cut the last 10 pages from my speech.
They're available online.
I'll keep it brief. Truly, it has been a privilege and a pleasure to serve with every single one of you. We've been in a pretty unique position in this council. We've put forth some of the most consequential projects that the city has seen in decades, in some cases. The zoning code rewrite, Business 51, City Hall. Tonight has been an incredibly impactful meeting to leave this body. And I'm really looking forward to watching progress continue from the other side of that table. Maybe watching the live stream from home, or maybe even taking a Monday night off once in a while. I can step away with confidence knowing Andrea is going to be such a valuable addition to the council. I truly cannot think of anyone else I would rather see step into my seat. I am so excited to see your contributions as a member of the body. To the new alders in general, no matter how much you learn, you are going to feel so over your head sometimes. That is truly normal. We are standing on the shoulders of everyone that comes before us, and in particular, we rely on the hard work and the competence of our incredible staff behind the scenes. If there's anything I've learned here, it is that nothing moves quickly and nothing is as simple as it seems like it should be. So remember that you can always choose to approach a conversation, again, with curiosity and good faith, even if it's not the first time you've had the conversation, maybe especially if it's not the first time you've had the conversation. Thank you to staff for your patience through 1,000 remedial questions and long conversations. I have so much respect for the work that all of you are doing every day, and I have a lot of faith that you'll continue to build on the positive momentum we've been seeing over my term. It is so easy to become disillusioned in this process, no matter what your part in it is. But electeds and staff are city residents, they're taxpayers, people with families. We all live in our neighborhoods, and we're trying to do the right thing. I think we all take our responsibilities here really seriously. So I did not come to the council with an axe to grind. I did not have a particular agenda other than wanting to meet a lot of dogs and maybe some people. And I did do that. I really do believe in civic engagement. It's something that's important to me. So the more precarious things start to feel, I think the more support and strength we need from each other. So even when we disagree and we're tired and frustrated and 3.5 hours into a meeting, I have seen the people of the city show up for each other a million different times, over and over and over. So more than anything, I leave the council with hope. I still believe every conversation can have merit and that you can learn something from anyone. It has been an honor to truly come to know and love this community in a way more profound way than I could have ever imagined 2.5 years ago. So thank you again for the opportunity to serve. Thank you for trusting me to represent you, and don't be a stranger.
And Alderperson Broderick, as a voting member of the 4th District, thank you for representing me.
Aww.
Not once have you ignored an email or a phone call or a request to meet, so thank you. Jeff Steinmetz. You flipped me off again, didn't you?
Again? That's actually the 3rd time, but.
He missed one.
Alder Steinmetz, in recognition of your dedicated public service as alderperson on the Stevens Point Common Council, the people of the city of Stevens Point extend their profound appreciation and sincere gratitude to you, April 2024 through April 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. How bittersweet this is. I've reflected a great deal on these last 2 years, the lessons learned, the cynicism spurned, and the voicemails returned. I am deeply grateful. Being afforded the opportunity to serve my neighbors and this city in this capacity has been my highest professional honor. 24 months ago, I would have told you that an alder's role is primarily the allocation of scarce resources, making the right decision. After having worn the hat, my perspective is more nuanced. Indeed, the role calls for critical thinking, but it is also largely listening, making people feel heard and valued, explaining why things are how they are, and crafting connections that lead to solutions. From the outset, I knew there would be challenges, setbacks beyond those found in building codes or deed restrictions and protective covenants. That's a joke for our community development department. Something I don't often say publicly is that I'm a people pleaser. I came into this role knowing it was not feasible to make everyone happy all the time. And after getting a couple meetings under my belt, I realized that not only is personal unanimous approval impossible, it's also the wrong goal. Good governing requires disappointing people sometimes. It requires saying, I hear you, and the answer is still no. Learning to toe that line without losing the relationship was one of the hardest things I did in 2 years. You may ask, how did I remain hopeful despite the guarantee of partial disappointment? That part's easy. Just look around at the people. Behind every resolution, every budget line item, every pothole patched, there's a city staff professional who's forgotten more about municipal government than most will ever know. Our department heads, clerk's office, public works and parks crews, police and fire departments, finance folks, just to name a few, they are more than their encyclopedic knowledge of acronyms. They are central to why Stevens Point is desirable. This shows up in families and employers choosing Stevens Point over 100 other places they could go. That desirability didn't happen by accident. It happened because many people, over many years, decided that this community was worth the work. My term was filled with moments of graciousness and patient and passionate education. Adam Kuhn sharing insights on moving pieces of development proposals. Dan Kramer getting back to me in under half an hour when I sent notes on park maintenance outside business hours. He did that more than once. Jared Kivala showing me how to navigate business improvement districts and make an agenda. This is not a comprehensive list, but it should convey the idea. These are the kinds of people that the city runs on. Council members come and go, they stay. We are extraordinarily lucky to have them. During these meetings, 11 people show up with 11 different slices of the city in their heads, and we reconcile what is best for our district with what is best for the city as a whole. We earnestly try to be good stewards. Our perspectives vary, and that's an asset. Disagreement is not necessarily indicative of dysfunction. It is a function of democracy doing what it's built to do. The votes I'm proudest of are not the ones where everyone nodded in agreement. They are the ones where someone changed my mind, or where perhaps I changed theirs, because we were willing to sit with the discomfort of being wrong. That intellectual honesty is rare in public life, and it should not be. In this room, on our best days, I've watched it happen. I'm confident you will continue making it happen. I leave this role having greater trust in public institutions. I said at the top that returning calls turned out to be a bigger part of this job than I expected. What I meant is the most important thing you can do in public service, and maybe in any kind of leadership, is make people feel like they matter enough to call back. Not because you always have the answer they want, but because they deserve to know someone is listening. Thank you to my neighbors who trusted me, city staff who supported me, my fellow alders and Mayor Wiesa who pushed me, and Stevens Point for continuing to foster me. In conclusion, my call to action is dream big, do hard things, because progress is harder won than lost.
Sue, I thought you were going to hit the timer on that.
I started writing that before the agenda came out. I didn't realize it was 28.
Alderperson Boozy. In recognition of your dedicated public service as alderperson on the Stevens Point Common Council, the people of the city of Stevens Point extend their profound appreciation and sincere gratitude to you, April 2024 through April 2026. Thanks.
It's hard to believe how fast 2 years can fly by. Serving on the council has been one of the most rewarding challenges I've taken on. As I look back, I'm mostly struck by the spirit of collaboration that really defines Stevens Point. I want to start by giving credit where it's truly due to the incredible staff. You guys really make the city what it is. To Mayor Wiesa, being a beacon and a great representative of the city. Your leadership's deeply involved in day-to-day pulse. Especially want to thank my fellow council members. We had a lot of conversations. We collaborated on a lot of things. I'm really proud of what we did, what we accomplished. We didn't always see eye to eye, but I valued the partnership, and I hope we all stay close going forward. I think we've tackled some massive generational kind of things in this term. The 365 shelter, near and dear to my district, new city hall. I just don't think it's a building. I think it's about creating a modern, efficient hub for citizens, and the hall, the shelter as well. Really looking out for those most in need. Says a lot about Stevens Point and makes me proud to be here. Through it all, my focus has always been on one thing, making sure we continue to provide high quality services for every single resident, whether it's clean water, safe streets, vibrant parks. Those are the things that really make Stevens Point what it is. Thanks again to all the colleagues. Most importantly, thanks to the residents for really showing that their trust in myself and everyone else here is well earned. Thank you.
And once again, thank you all very much for your service. Tomorrow we start a new chapter, and since they're all here tonight, to the Council of 2026-2027, I offer a few things of advice. The role that you have taken is one that is going to require some work. It's going to require some passion, it's going to require some concern, and it's going to require some patience. The city staff are at your disposal. Learn about why we do things the way we do, how we do things. There's always a reason. Seems there's a lot of people on social media that think we can do our job, they can do our job better. But understand why it's done a certain way. And if we need to change it, we change it. And we have to work together for the next year. So I would encourage everybody to let's holster our tongue lashers. Let's wipe the chips off our shoulders. Let's learn about each and every project and do what's best for the citizens of Stevens Point. With that, our agenda is exhausted, and we stand adjourned at 0:30. What do you call that? About 10:52. Yep. Thank you all.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.